What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Metal Maniacs podcast. I'm your host, Jay Ingersoll, and I'm here with a man that demands a little R-E-S-P-E-C-T.
What's good, Jay? It's your boy, Modd.
What's up, buddy?
Thanks for the respect. I appreciate it.
Yeah, for sure.
Have I earned it?
You definitely have.
Thank you.
So today we have a returning guest, a very special friend of mine. This dude's my brother. I remember I gave you a great intro on the last episode, so you guys go watch that. That's episode 14.
Yeah, go back.
So you are a returning guest, but
Yeah.
we love you. We love to have you on the show. A lot has changed since the last time you've been on the show, so we got a lot to talk about, and I'm really excited you made the time today.
Yeah.
So Addison Eilers, thank you so much for coming back, bro.
Dude, yeah, stoked to be here. Because I was just thinking, like, on my drive over, I was like, man, the last time I was here, was it last August, September?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You were real early
early.
on the show, dude. Because
Okay.
your episode didn't come out till 14, but we could have probably put you out at 6.
Okay.
You know, you were one
Yeah.
of the first interviews. Like,
Yeah.
I think Eliminator was on here, and then it was pretty much you
No
and
kidding.
Jeremy were the first two. So
Wow.
Yeah.
But man, life has done a 180 in a very positive way for me.
Yeah.
I mean, let's start there because a lot of like what has happened in my personal life has influenced where I'm at in my professional life.
Yep.
Yeah,
So
sure,
to speak.
dude.
So
Yeah.
last time we were here, I was full bore I was just kicking off pedals, designing, building, all that, and then also doing the studio. Last year, I was busy. I had a busy year last year doing records. It was great. So in that time, I was ramping up Pedal Designs productions, and then end of October, beginning of November last year, Tara and I, we ended our marriage. It wasn't the most shocking thing in the world. Like we have both, like, we were together 14 years,
Mm.
and we really grew into kind of like the people we were meant to be, and just recognized that we didn't have what the other person needed. And so that was it was weird because it's like we had spent all this time putting our lives together and now untangling our relationship. And the cool thing is, like, we're very much like best friends still, which is great.
Yeah.
Super supportive of each other and very focused on, being there for the kids.
Right.
But what that caused me was, so I moved out the end of February this year. So that means, because I had the studio at the house, and I reached out to Rick Johnson that owns Cold War Studio in Grand Rapids, and I say, hey, do you rent your studio out? And he goes, absolutely. Cool. So now I have a place to record. And in that time, it's kind of wild. I'm so thankful this happened because it's made me a stronger person, like, mentally. I never realized how much unresolved stuff was just roaming around inside me, and it started to just bubble up to the surface. And then BetterHelp has been advertised to me so much.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I got on there, I got with a therapist, and it was the best. Like, I had a moment where I just like literally, this is a true story. I was at work, I just started bawling, crying. I did not know why. And so I left work, and I was like so bothered by the fact that there was something inside me I didn't know about, because I've always felt like I've been very in tune with myself. So I was like, I need a therapist so I can dig in to figure it out. Best money I ever spent. The biggest thing that I learned in that time was I've struggled with my relationship with music, to where in the beginning, with like me and my brother Vin, so Ephus, we played music, and we just played and we 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 played and played because that's what we love to do. Over time, we want to create that into something more, a business, so to speak. It's like we play, but it's like we want to make money so we can continue to drive and play different places and
Live the dream.
exactly, so
Really?
like that mindset starts kicking in. And then over time, it's just like the music slowly gets watered down to where it's like the focus is, we need merch.
Yep.
We need to get a record out. We need to do all of these things to support it. We have to be our own label because major labels supporting bands is rare now, And so I remember specifically Paul and I's last tour in 2023 was in February. We were in Kansas City. And you know how when you play your certain songs, like there's reactions at certain spots that you just like, oh, after you play that song, you're like, oh, people typically respond here.
Yeah.
You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
sure.
It's like this spot, oh, this is a
Yeah.
cool chug here. People
Yeah.
like it. It was a lighter crowd. It was like a Wednesday or Thursday night. And we were playing really good. And I was like, yeah. And it's like every time we hit these spots, it was just like it was just dead silence and just like weird. And then like at the end of the show, like when the first or second band got done playing, it's like, we go talk to them, because you're on the road, you build a relationship with people.
Right.
These guys didn't talk to us. It was weird.
Huh.
And I was just like, just thinking to myself, I was like, this is odd. It was very deflating,
Yeah.
Fast forward, I get back from the road and I'm talking to my buddy Scott, and he goes, if the applause wasn't there, would you still do music? And that fucked with my head so much,
Right.
to the point to where, fast forward to where I'm doing this session with Jonathan, who was my therapist. He's the freaking bomb. And we talked about music. And same guy, Scott, took me to a Marcus King show. And the second band, drawing a blank of what he's called, but I remember there were moments where it's like you could tell like the core of the song was happening, and then they were coming up to a jam section. And I remember getting so excited towards it's like, oh, they're going to go into a jam section. I was like, where are they going to take us? And I remember getting so excited about that. And Jonathan goes, he's like, dude, he's like, you're excited about that organic realness of music.
Yeah.
And it caused me to realize that I have put away or compartmentalized that piece that like just played guitar for fun. And it's such a weird thing to think about, because every time I would pick up my guitar, it's like, I got to write something cool. I got to write the next this, I'm holding myself to the standard instead of just playing my instrument for just pleasure.
The joy of it.
The sake of playing.
Just
too.
for playing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Just to write something that you're in love with, basically.
1,000%. So
Yeah.
when you guys saw us at Heart on Your Sleeve Festival,
Mhm.
I hadn't had this aha moment yet, but like I was on the cusp of it where I said to Paul, I said, I just want to jam. And we had the rehearsals where it's like, we're going to play these songs, but it's like, I just want to play. And he goes, sounds great, man. Let's do it.
Yeah.
And that's when we have the most fun. And that's how Paul and I started was we would just go up and be like, we're going to start with this song, get to it somewhere in the middle, and then we're going to end with this song, and then we're going to jam until we shit the bed. Or as we say, the wheels come off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I used to love that feeling of being uncomfortable, of being like, oh man, because like, that when you're in the moment trying to be creative,
Yeah.
and your subconscious takes over and you don't know where these riffs come from. It's like, why did I put my fingers there? He's like, you don't know, you just do it, you know? And that was really exciting for me. And so when we just played a show recently, it was the same thing. I was like, let's just go play. I just wanted to play and just hear my guitar and just be with Paul on stage and have that, connection.
Was that back in August at Rake?
Oh
Is
yeah,
that what you're
yeah,
talking
it
about?
was.
Okay.
Yeah, that was a fun show. I love that Rake is throwing shows.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
And
awesome.
I love that they're honest about it and being like, this is music. It's kind of like the old hall shows where you would see, 30 different genres of bands in like one day. Like, it's a 6-band bill, and it's like, oh, you got a punk band, you got a pop band, you got a hardcore band, you got a metal band. And I love that it's Brett and Jeremy that are primarily.
Yep.
I love it. I think it's great, and it's so cool to see. Like, we played with 2 young punk bands that were like incredible. I can't remember their names, but I was just like, I had that moment. I was like, oh, the younger generation, the next class is coming up.
Yes.
Yep.
And it's like, and they're not disappointing. It was really exciting to see.
That's awesome.
But I can't remember where I was at on my
So you're
rant.
talking about your revelation, basically.
Oh,
like
yeah.
your resolution here.
Your
after-
relationship with music.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How you played Heart on Your Sleeve Fest, and then right after that, that's kind of where you were at.
Yeah. So a couple things happened. So with me leaving the house and Tara and I ending, I did not have the mental energy to devote to growing a business of pedals. And go ahead.
Can I interrupt you just
Yeah,
for
yeah.
1 second, real quick? I just want to ask you something about that relationship, because you were talking about, you spend 14 years with somebody, right?
Yeah.
And they almost make you the person who you are, because a lot
Yeah.
of the things you've done has adapted to that. And then you go and say that you've gone through therapy, which I've done the same thing, which is awesome, because it can definitely help resolve some of that.
Dude, it's like a
built
cheat
up-
code for
yeah,
life.
Yeah, for
It
sure.
really is, you know?
Talk therapy can definitely help big time. Man.
Yeah.
But do you feel like now that you've stepped away from that a little bit, do you feel like still what a great opportunity them 14 years were? How
1000%.
thankful you are,
Yes.
not just with your kids, right?
Yeah.
But like just becoming the person who you became. You
Yes.
know?
Oh, and there's this piece of me. So yes. So like the greatest thing about Tara was she was supportive 1,000% on everything. Like I remember when I met Paul and I was excited because I was like, here's I finally met someone who has the same level of ambition that I do. And I remember specifically sitting on the front porch and I said, hey, this guy wants to go. I want to give this band like a real try. And she just goes, you're not getting any younger. And it was just like she was there for it. And we would just communicate about these are the days I'm looking at. Like whenever we'd want to go out and play, a batch of shows, be gone for 10, 12 days. I'd say, this is the window we're looking at. And then we would talk about it. She's like, if you guys can do this would be better.
Yeah.
And same thing, like when I moved the studio to the house, I asked her, I was like, hey, because at that point I was recording out of Paul's house. And I was like, I really want to move the studio to the house. And she goes, sounds great. She's like, we're not
Nice.
really using the basement.
Yeah.
Just nonstop support always.
Yeah, right.
And there was a level of, I was actually really proud of her for bringing up like, hey, this isn't working out, because like finally I was just like, dude, you're standing up for yourself. And there was that level of pride where I'm just like, good for you.
Right.
All this time
Sure.
we spent together, like helping each other grow. And so, yeah, like there's that level of like, I think it's just now we just have kind of like a really great mutual respect for each other.
Yeah, and that's awesome to hear. I just know any relationship that you've had in the past, once you've out of that relationship for a while, at the time it seems so dire and it changes your life and you got to get out of your comfort zone, but that only encourages growth. But as an adult and as somebody that is reflective and introspective and has gone through therapy, you got to say that you are thankful for those times, even though they seem to be a little rough at the end, or that bond has now separated.
Yeah.
But you have to be grateful because there is things that you learned, and the other person too has learned things that they need, and maybe you can't give them that, or vice versa. And that's kind of where sometimes you just have to say, we did this thing, but we respect where we're both going. And I mean, that's great to hear that you guys are in a good relationship. But it's just, a lot of people get bent or they get caught up in I don't like that person no more because they don't love me no more. And like, you got to kind of just let all that go. That's just your ego speaking, you know, like you got to let that go and realize what it was.
Yeah.
Everything comes to an end. We're all going to expire.
Right.
So your relationships are going to expire. Things happen, but you got to look back and you got to be grateful for what you did, all the great things you got out of that,
Yeah. Oh, I agree completely. Everything you said is dead on. And which is cool, and it's like it's exactly that ego. It's like, just keep that out of here.
Yeah.
You know?
Exactly.
And then there's things I learned about myself was I knew how much of an integral part of me being so busy was, and then all of a sudden to not have that, I realized I'm really busy.
Okay.
So much so to where like with the time I have with the kids, I took advantage of the fact that my studio was in the same house as my children. And so like now when I have the kids, I'm trying to be present as a dad, which is something that like I kind of felt like I wasn't the greatest at before. Like I would see the kids, but actually like being with the kids and doing stuff together.
Yeah.
That was a big piece. I've taken like my diet and health has become a really big priority of mine. I started to do, I think it's called the Better Me app, which is like, I love it. It kind of breaks it down to where, help me build good habits. I started reading this book called Atomic Habits.
Yeah. James Clear.
Oh, great book.
Yeah, it's really good.
Jonathan recommended that. That's been really helpful.
Yep.
I read this book called Attached, which talks about our attachment styles. That book is incredible. That was an eye opener. And I was like, it made sense why Tara and I are together. And then it made sense why we grew into who we were. And that was another great book. And then those two right there kind of have been helping me move forward. And I started journaling too, which has been really helpful to kind of like, it was really great because I didn't realize that it was going to be helpful until I started doing it. And it was almost like I could just take a part of my brain, just set it there and I wouldn't have to think about it. And then I would also like go back and read it. And I was like, oh. And then you'd have that aha moment, like reading it, like, oh, there we go, okay. That was really beneficial. So I kind of made a deal with myself to where we had spoken before about, like, you know, you had a really slick way of saying it, of like, I want to record every band because it's like, if I don't record every band, I'm like that work mindset of like, I've let go of that. Like I'm so thankful that bands want to work with me. And like, I was so nervous that when I didn't have the studio and people were going to see that, I'm not going to get any work. But this year, like, bands have still reached out. I've still stayed busy, and it's been really nice that I have fixed times I can record, where it's like Rick works out of his studio. I think there's another guy that mixes out of his studio. So it's like, I've got to check and see the studio's availability, then my availability with the kids. And it's been really good for this.
Yeah.
Because before I'd just be like, hey, I got a weekend open.
Yeah.
And I would just book myself silly.
You just say yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
So part of your growth in looking inward is that maybe you were keeping yourself busy to almost put away some of these other responsibilities.
1,000%.
You know, you're like, I'm busy doing something, so I know I'm busy. You know, but it wasn't always beneficial to you or your mental health. That's kind of what I'm hearing you say, basically.
Big time. And like, so I went back to my old job, GE, doing tech work.
So you're living out in Grand Rapids now?
Nope, I'm living in Whitehall.
Oh, you are?
Yep, I commute back and forth to Grand Rapids every day.
Okay.
But I was there before, and then I left and I went to the restaurant for a little while. Then I jumped into pedals, and then I just needed some kind of stability and regular income, where it's like the only downside with doing records and pedals is like there's highs and lows.
Yes.
So I went back there, and it was great, and I love being there. But then as soon as I got there, I was just like, I worked 7 days a week for like 4 months by my own decision, where I'm just like, and Jonathan's like, well, you're just kind of going into survival mode. Where it's like, you're just, because like, it was so much easier to focus on that and not acknowledge other things. And then I stopped, and then I was like, oh, wow, there's a lot of stuff that I need to process here and just like make sense and figure out. And, you know, Tiny Tree is a big one for me. Like, we have this record that it's pretty much done. I have to finish tracking vocals on 2 things, and then I'll be ready. I can't bring myself to finish it. And then, like, knowing that that's kind of coming to an end, I think was kind of like it's not coming to an end, but like, it's not a big piece of my life anymore.
So can we talk about this for a little
absolutely.
bit, if you don't mind?
Yeah, not at all.
So you guys did drop a 9-minute song.
Yeah.
Back in June. Wish that thing wouldn't be flying around here, God damn it.
Yeah.
A 9-minute song called Copying a Mouse back on the 28th of June.
Yeah.
So was this a one-off type song then, or because you said you have an album?
That's a chunk of the record.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like a single, you would say, off the album, right?
Yeah.
All right.
So
I'll just let you know real quick. Reminded me of some Tiny Tree, like Pink Floyd-y at moments. Very open, very big. You guys kind of go in this cool rock section in the middle, so it's like more just kind of a rock. But I just love the ebb and flow and the dynamics of the whole track. Overall, very chill vibe, but that's kind of the Tiny Tree vibe, is just kind of the chill, open, you know, but catchy at parts too, just riffs that would kind of like get stuck in your head. And
cool.
I really enjoyed your singing on the track too.
I feel like I finally got there.
Yeah, I feel like it's kind of like, not that your singing was bad before, because I commended you on this the last time you were on the show, but the singing on this, it felt like you were really confident in your own, you know, like you found your thing. You know?
Oh man, it's funny. Like, these songs. There was a song we did where we were jamming. I think it released on YouTube. And Paul was like, "Man, your singing sounds really good on that." I was like, "This is easier to sing to." And he goes, "Well, let's just write more stuff like that."
Nice.
I was like, "Cool."
There you go.
And
there it is.
Yeah, you know. And then like another thing, it sounds so funny where I was talking to Jesse Ray, and I was like, "Hey man, when you quit smoking, how much easier was it to sing?" He goes, "Night and day." So I said, "Okay, I'll quit smoking." So I quit smoking.
Yep.
That was a big help. And then confidence, because what happened was, so we played that tour, and I had quit smoking shortly before that. And I remember my buddy Dave, we played with them in Illinois, and he goes, "Man, your voice sounded really good tonight." I started doing vocal warm-ups before the show. And then so it's like hearing nice things from your friends. I was like, okay, cool. Then I started to feel good about it.
Yep.
And then like that kind of lifted me up. And then people who I really respected as singers, they'd say, I was like, hey man, that sounded pretty cool. I'm like, all right. And then it's like, you know
Right.
how it is. It's
Yeah.
like you put it out there and then people say nice things. And then,
Yeah.
then you feel more confident. You take more risks.
Yep.
And so.
Encourages you to do it more because you're getting that good feedback. So you're like,
Yes.
okay, thumbs up. Let's do that more. You know?
Yeah.
Exactly. And the rest of the record is there's a lot of good vocals in there, which I'm really proud of. And then like the last two songs were just like I had stuff that I was singing live, and then when I recorded it, I was like, oh, it just doesn't really work right. And so I'm like, I've got to reconfigure some stuff, and now I've like kind of set the bar.
Yeah.
Where I'm like, it has to be cool.
Yeah, especially if it's at the end of the album, right?
You know,
Right. Or at the beginning.
Yeah. And you know the thing is,
Yeah.
like, so the funny thing about that little 9 chunk we took out, we did so Paul and I write in vinyl mindset. So we
Yeah.
think 22-minute chunks.
Yeah, you talked about this last
Okay.
time.
I remember.
I actually listened to the interview last night because I wanted to make sure that to remember all the stuff that we kind of covered before. But
Oh, sure.
Yeah, we did talk about that. How you guys even tried it a few different times of the 22 minutes because you went a little long. And
Oh yeah, so it's
Yeah.
like that chunk is from the first little
Yeah.
22-minute chunker.
Yeah.
and that's all just one
One take.
one thing because there was like this part 2 where it kind of dived out a little bit and then it kind of came in louder or whatever. You know what I'm talking
Yeah.
about?
So I just did all that stuff in like post.
just kind of like automation, just kind of
Yep.
made it a little trippy in there, a
Yeah.
little weird. Yeah, I
Yep.
like that. I heard that. So tell me about Tiny Tree then,
Yeah,
man. Like,
yeah.
So now was Paul always playing with Jesse?
So okay, there's a story.
Okay.
All right. So and I'm sure Dingo will be okay with it because I think it's kind of public. But so Dingo and Jesse were the Jesse Ray, Brandon Hop.
Okay.
So there was a show that Brandon couldn't make. Paul filled in, and then eventually got to the point to where Brandon was just like real life. You know, being in a band. When do you spend all your time? Nights and weekends. When do you hang out with your friends? Nights and weekends. You know, like and so it's just like it became a lot. You know, he's like, I kind of want to have a day job and a life.
Yeah.
So then Paul started filling in, and then it got to that point where it's just like cool. And then so Paul's like, here's an opportunity. Paul can actually pay his bills with that band, which is exceptional. I was like, as a friend, I'm like, how can I hold you back from this
Right,
opportunity? I'm
Yeah,
like,
no kidding.
you get to play drums and pay your bills.
Yeah.
Go for it.
Yeah.
And so they pressed the gas there. And they've been doing really well. It's been exciting because they're busy. They're busy boys and they're on the road a lot, which is great. And so the only kickback is there's less time for us.
Right.
But on the flip, I got really busy with doing records, which
Mhm.
would eat into Tiny Tree time. Like Paul and I think about this. I'm gonna sidestep here. Is like I felt like with like jobs, like every job sets you up for the next job. It's like same thing with bands. Every band you're in kind of sets you up for the next band.
Yeah.
And I think Paul and I needed to be together to like cue us up for the next thing.
Okay.
Because if Paul and I wouldn't have been together, we would have never met all these people. He would have never met Jesse. Jesse recorded. Dingo did a live record at Paul's house. Paul would have never started his record label. Paul would have never released this. I would have never recorded Jesse. All these things
Right.
have come together and have created these relationships. And that got me to the point where it's just like now I'm playing in Tongue Cutter.
Yeah.
We'll
We'll get to that in a second.
Yeah. So it's kind of like I was just thinking about that. I was like, if we would have never had this great time together, I would have never grown as a musician and a recording engineer, producer. You would have never gotten back into the scene like how I was back in the day playing drums. And so now it kind of like elevated both of us to get us to where we needed to be as individuals, which is really cool because Paul and I, it's like when we see each other, it's just like we pick up where we left off.
Yeah. Yeah.
Musically and just
Right.
shenanigans.
So what's going forward with Tiny Tree then?
What I said to Paul, I said what I'd love to do is because there's something that I can only get with him. I said what I think would be really great is every record moving forward is we just get in a room together and just mic everything up and just jam and then just release like live stuff.
Mm.
Because that to me is like, that's us. Like this record we did it all live minus vocals. And so this one is the best one we've done, in my opinion, because it just feels like us. So I
Yeah.
feel like that's the way.
That's who you guys are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're a live band. We're vibe seekers.
in the moment,
Yeah.
jam.
Mhm.
Let's
Yep.
do it.
Yeah. I love that stuff. It's good stuff.
So it's just going to be Tiny Tree. You're going to play when you can play. It's going to be less
Yep.
busy, but a lot less pressure
Yeah.
on trying to make, like you said, put another record,
Yeah.
put another single, make it this, make it that,
Yeah.
book this show, book it that.
Yep. And the other thing too is like Paul and I are at different stages in lives. Like his kids are grown, so he has a lot more free time. So he'd be like, "Hey, let's practice this day, this day, this day, and this day." I was like, "Ah, I can't make it work."
Yeah.
So then I'm like holding him back from being able to play the drums the
Yeah.
way he wants.
Yeah.
You know.
Right.
So it works out great because he and Jesse's like, they got a system and they can rehearse, 4 or 5 days a week and play shows and do that, which is really cool.
Cool. So I guess that answers my question about Tiny Tree. It's still happening.
Yeah.
It's just not going to be as a full force,
Yeah.
full-time type of thing, taking up a lot of your time. All right, so you had mentioned you joined Tongue Cutter. You want to tell me a little bit about that then and dive into that?
I remember before, so Chantel and Cy were a two-piece, drums and guitar.
Yep.
And then
The drummer.
Yep,
Yeah.
yep. And so when Cy left, Chantel reached out to me saying, "Hey, I'm looking for another drummer, maybe even a drummer and a bass player." And I was like, "Man, I would do that in a heartbeat if I could." And so becoming a fan, because like I'm a fan of Tongue Cutter.
Right.
And then when Derek was unable to like keep going with the band because of all the health stuff he's got going on, she reached out. She's like, "Hey, so remember how you said that you would love to play bass in this band? Would you?" And I'm like, "Yep."
Yep.
I ordered a bass. That like we got off the phone. I bought a bass
Oh, yeah.
because I have one, but it's a short scale, and I was like, I'm gonna get exactly what I want. I was so excited, and it's been a blast. Like it's really cool because like one of the things I love is I'm not on the hook creatively.
Yeah.
Like in Tiny Tree, it's just like, come up with something, Addison, be the melodic creator, to where it's like, this is in my mind, this is Chantel's baby. I'm just here to be a supporter.
Mhm.
It's like, I'm here for you. I'm going to make sure the low end is there.
Yeah.
And I'm going to, if you need something from me, just let me know. Just kind of being a chameleon. I love it. I love it a lot. And then, Cam is an insane drummer. Chantel's a freaking monster guitar player and vocalist. And it was just like, it's really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, we get along really well, and she's super driven, which is exciting.
Yep.
Like, so it's like I've got another Paul in the band because Paul's driven. And then it's also nice for her to have another, driven person like myself, to where we can bounce stuff off of each other. Because this week is a busy week for us. After this, we got rehearsal, and then tomorrow we're doing a photo shoot. And then Thursday we're doing a shooting a music video. She hired some fancy schmancy video guy. She's like, "What do you think of this dude's work?" I was like, "This looks cool." She's like, "Yeah, I booked him to do our video."
Sweet.
I was like, "Cool."
That's badass.
And then she went and pitched Tongue Cutter to Learning Curve. She said, "I love all the bands on your roster. I would love to be a part of it." And they're like, "Cool, we'll release your vinyl." Like, so that's kind of cool,
Yeah.
Awesome.
And so I just like, it's kind of nice to be, in the passenger seat, so to speak.
Yeah.
And just be a supporter.
Yep.
I like that role. I mean,
Yeah.
I like to be the supporter or the team musician.
Yeah.
Like, hey, you write the riffs, and then I just get to do my part.
Yeah.
That makes it so much easier for me because I don't have to be on the hook, like, as you said, responsible for
Yeah.
everything. Like the driving force, like, what if they don't like it? What if I don't like it?
Yeah.
What if I don't like your
Yeah.
riff? I'm gonna have, like,
Yeah.
that hurts.
Yeah.
That hurts. But I like to have somebody bring something to me, and if I have a criticism of it, like with Jay, I've always liked to say, like, we could do something different here.
Yeah.
Change this part if you're willing. Hear me out. You got to be
Yeah.
delicate. Like, you're telling a songwriter, hey, your song is almost perfect. But I agree. I'm a
Yeah.
big team player when it comes to that sort of thing. I love to just be the supporting role and have
Yeah.
the main part of it done for me. So I get you there. I really feel that part. Like, that's me.
Yeah, it's great for my brain right now because that's a big thing. I'm
Yeah.
trying to like simplify my life in
Yeah.
a lot of ways. Like for the first time ever, like I did not book any bands for the month of October, and I've got one record in November, and may not even book December, and so it's kind of nice to be at a point now where it's like I feel comfortable taking a break and I'm not going to disappear. Because that was a
Yeah.
fear of mine. It's like I'm going to fall off people's radar,
Yeah.
Yeah.
like.
No.
But that was encouraging because like when I left the house. It's like, all of a sudden, Dies hit me up. Like, hey, we want to do a single. It's like, okay, cool.
Yeah.
And this band from Lansing is like, hey, we just want to come track. I was like, cool. So it's like, I'm not gone. And it's weird how it's like with how quickly social media turns over. It's just like, am I going to disappear?
Yeah.
Or this band I'm doing in November, it's like I talked to these guys 2.5 years ago when we played with them in Chicago. And they're just like, yeah, we remember talking to you. And it's like, remember you did the Arson records and those are cool and you seemed really hilarious. So it's like, we want to come do a record with you. I was like, sweet.
Yeah.
Nice.
It's funny how that
Yeah.
happens. Like,
Yeah.
that's how I did the Slugchild record. Like, I ran into 2 of the guys at Speciation.
Mhm.
Then we just talked shop for like a half hour. And it's like, yeah, we remembered you recorded. And then we checked your stuff out and it was cool. I was like, sweet.
We literally we did a reaction episode before this one, and
Yeah.
Slugchild was one of the songs that we did with your
Dude.
production. So
Those
Yeah.
guys are
Yeah.
monsters.
yeah,
Yeah,
they're
it's heavy as hell.
heavy as shit, man.
The drummer, I'm embarrassed, I can't remember his name. Dave. Yeah, Dave. And so that dude is unreal. I was like, I said, I remember talking to him, I was like, what's the best way for you? Like, do you want Kent to play along with you, click track? He's like, honestly, I could play every song front to back just by my own meter and in my head. I was like,
Wow.
well, let's have Kent play along just so we know
Know where we're at.
Yeah.
But it was like, it's like he nailed it in like 1 or 2 takes.
Right.
Jesus.
Because they asked me, it's like, what do we need to do to make sure that we can make the best of our time? I said, be rehearsed.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they took that seriously.
As-
Every
as
single
they
one
should.
of them.
That's
As
badass.
anyone should, but like
Yeah.
that's the level that you want to be at. Like
Yes.
be rehearsed could mean
Yeah.
anything. Like, oh, I practiced last night, or yeah, I can play it in my sleep.
Yeah.
You know, like
Yeah.
when you show up to the studio ready to go like that, then that's when you find you can do more and
Yeah.
do better than what you had even rehearsed, because you're like, yeah, this part I'm feeling on board with it, so I'm gonna
Yeah.
I'm gonna get creative here. Like
Yeah.
and Jay and I have done that too, where we'd sit down and I just like, yeah, I don't really like the bass line right here. As I'm sitting here listening to it, like, yes, I've been playing this forever.
Yeah.
We need to rewrite it here and now in the studio. And that has happened in ways where you either strip it back or you'd say, well, can you do something like this? And you like walk the dog a little bit. I'm like, yeah, I don't see why not. What are you
Yeah.
doing there? Like, yeah, so I love those moments in the studio.
Yeah,
It's,
if
it's
you
so
can-
exciting.
Everybody else can nail their stuff down, then you got more time to play.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if you're waiting for Mr. Drummer that's already taken 2 days past his time because you can't hit the drum fill or whatever, you
Yeah.
know,
Sure.
so
Yeah.
yeah, you gotta go in there and be ready.
Yeah, it's
But-
a huge boon.
But
That's-
before we move on, like going back to Tongue Cutter, so you
Yeah.
guys have this record that's coming out. I know.
Yeah.
You recorded it, but
Yep.
when you started recording it. Now, did he start recording bass on it?
Yeah. So Derek, he tracked everything on the records.
Okay, so
Yep.
you didn't retrack it yourself. You're like, I
Nope.
can do it better. Oh, that's
No.
already done. It's already
No,
sent
dude,
off. It's already.
Derek is an exceptional talent.
Yes.
He is.
Yeah. That was evident when I was watching Heart on Your Sleeve Fest, and I was paying attention to what he was doing. I was
Yes.
like, man, he's locked in so good, but then he can
Yes.
he can walk the dog a little bit, and
Yeah.
find pockets of melody. And I was like, oh man, that was tasty bass line right there. I noticed, so I had that same appreciation when I last saw it.
Incredible. And then so when Chantel's like, let me know if you need help learning the songs. I'm like, well, 2 things. I've listened to these a lot.
yeah, yeah.
And
Probably more than her.
yeah. It was funny. There was one section I was like, actually on the record you play it this way. And she
Oh.
goes, oh. And then it was what you ever notice how you like flip a riff because you start doing vocals
Oh yeah.
or your vocal pattern?
Mhm.
Yep.
And I was like, oh, you actually play this 2 counts longer. And she's like, oh, you know what I do? It was kind of funny because I'd listened to it so many times mixing it. And then I was like, plus I told her, I was like, I can solo Derek's bass part and listen to
Yeah.
it, which is cool. Which was really handy because then like when I was like really learning the songs, I had the bounce session of just the stereo tracks, and I just DI'd my bass into that session, and then I would just play along with the songs and I go over and over
Yeah.
and over and over again. And then when I get to the space, then they would fill in the gaps and be like, okay, oh, you're just a fret off here.
Yeah.
And I was
Mhm.
like, okay, just little things that sometimes it's like you never notice when you're playing along with something. It's like you can't tell you're totally off until
Oh, yeah.
you're in the room. You're like, oh, I guess I am
yeah,
off here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, for sure. It's always them little tricks in
Yeah.
your ears that play on you for sure.
And you never realize how clever people are as songwriters until you try and get inside their heads.
Well,
Right.
especially Chantel. She's out of left field. That took me a long time. Her music when we used to play in Indra together
Yeah.
was I'd have to practice and practice and practice.
Yeah.
Because I do not write anywhere near that. My writing style is 1,000% different than hers. So like being trying to write what, like you said, put yourself in her shoes and kind of like follow her, and the chords and the fingerings, that she used, just everything that I would never do. So
yeah, same. And it's exciting. And like her and Cam are really math brainy. I'm not. I'm just like, I got to hear it. Cause like Vin would do this to me back in the day. He'd be like, do this because he could be really mathy. And I was like, I just need to play it like 30 times.
Yeah.
And then and I'm like, okay, I got it.
I'm pretty blue collar like that myself.
I just need to woodshed.
Yeah. You don't need to count the 7, then on the 3, and then 4 here. It's like, can we just jam it? And
Because like they'll be like,
I'll get it better. Yeah.
There's like different vibes attached to it. Just like, like 5/4 is like, oh, that's the overhang feel. Where it just kind of hangs around, like it always pulls at you.
And you never want to change. Like a 5/4, you never want to change because it just does that like loop. So it's just like you don't know when to change because you feel like you could just play that for 8 more minutes.
because it's so curious. Yeah. It is funny how it's just like, that's like, because I'm not a counter. I'm just like, I'll just feel it out. And then like that's it's gotten me along this far.
Yeah.
I was like winging it, and I just told Chantel, I was like, I'm just gonna be like the glue. I said I kind of pictured myself as Brian from Russian Circles and Botch, and she's like, oh, perfect, I love him. I was like, sweet, okay.
Here I go.
Yeah.
I said there's some things I want to some tricks, like some Addison moves I want to add here and there, just like make the live show more flowy, because that's one thing I love about me and Paul is just like that non-stop
flow.
To go. She's like, I'm all about it. It's like, cool.
Sweet.
So I have her blessing, which is cool, because I'm like, I don't want to mess up what she's got going on, because I was like, this is your thing, man. Like last thing you want is some bulldozer coming and be like, no, dude, we're playing pentatonic right now.
It's probably nice to have the new blood and the fresh energy and excitement, having you come aboard and you're all about it. You're already a fan of the band. I think that definitely gives a lot of energy in the whole band entirely, like to go forward and bring it out live. And that sounds good. I like your idea. Like new ideas are welcome here. Like that's a band I want to be in. Like new ideas welcome here.
Yeah.
Especially with the energy and excitement, right?
And then if she's riffing, you just have to learn it. So it's kind of like,
like her and Cam wrote a song, and I'm just like, I'll just listen to it and figure it out in my apartment.
Yeah.
It's like I need a minute, because it's like it's some crazy freaking time. I was
weird time, and
and I'm like, oh, that's the lift. Like when wherever the 1 is, I'm like, because it's just like, once you figure out where that pop is, because it's like that's the vibe thing. It's like it's like the count feels weird, but it's like, oh, you do this, then it flips, then it flips, then it flips. Okay, that's what the flips are. And then it starts getting in you, and like, and then you're over here doing freaking. It's wild, but it's cool. And I was like, her and Cam were right, and then they sent me the file, and I was like, this is insanely heavy.
That's awesome. So, her and I have been in talks, obviously, with Heart on Your Sleeve coming back around here sooner than later. I mean, we're already
holy
getting
cow.
month 10 if you think about it. So,
jeez.
And we had talked. We've been in talks, and she said when the album's ready to come out, I'm going to have Tongue Cutter back on the show.
Cool.
Invitation's welcome for you, too. I was going to have the whole band on the show, but now that you're in the band, you guys can come on and kind of talk about it. But
I'd love to be there.
We might listen to some songs or something. We talked a little bit about that, but I'll talk to her more about that. But I just thought it was funny because you were coming on the show, and then I felt like we almost said you were coming on the show before you even said you was in Tongue Cutter. If I
was it really?
It was close. It was close because I didn't see it coming. And I know a lot of other people didn't really see it coming. Probably, it was kind of one of those things where, and in my mind, I was like, Addison's so damn busy. But now everything we've talked about kind of makes sense.
Yeah, I've really slowed down a lot, and it's good too because Chantel's really busy with her business.
Yes,
to where it's like she's not looking to get on the road every other day.
Yeah,
right.
So she's like, well, the summer's really busy for her photography portion, and so it's like cool. And then like, now that I've gone from 2 incomes to 1 income, I've got to stay a little bit busier out at GE, working as much as I can to like kind of get myself, in survival mode on finances, because that's real life stuff,
that's part of it.
Which is good. And then we're starting to set into a rhythm with practices and stuff like that. Towards like we're figuring everything out with everyone's schedule, which is good. And then I also like having something I can set my clock to, where I'm like, okay, cool. It's like a Sunday, cool. We're doing Monday, sweet. Every other Monday. And then like it's also nice where I have a routine with my kids every other week, and I was like, cool.
Yeah.
And so the thing is, like, I'm trying to get better at, because it's the ADD brain, as I've learned, is when I'm flying solo without the kids, my natural tendency is fill my calendar.
Right.
And so I'm trying
You got to do something. You got to do something.
Yeah.
You know?
and then I immediately regret it.
Yeah.
You know, like, I was like, man, this weekend's freaking nuts. Like, I worked this weekend, and then I was like, I need to get these. The band Returner. Have you seen those guys before? We
No.
played with them at Rake. Their
No.
record is insane. They're not heavy, but if you guys do alternative rock
Yeah,
on Metal Maniacs,
for
these
sure.
guys are bonkers. So I was like, I got mixed notes to wrap up with these guys, and I was like, oh man, I need to sit down and carve off some time to do that. And then it's like, then I got the podcast, and I got rehearsal, and then be able to just like sit and be a blob for a minute.
Yeah.
You know, and then like the other thing too is like there was a chunk of time where it's like I really established my exercise routine.
Mm.
And so it's like now it's like I'm not able to exercise the same amount of intensity because like you got to carve time out for
Yeah.
that,
Yep.
you know, which is nice about the better me. It's like, okay, cool, I'm committing 20 minutes. Sweet, I can do that. And then focusing on like what I'm eating and water, as you saw my gallon jug.
Yeah.
Making sure I'm hydrated.
Mhm.
No, that's cool, man. You
Plenty
look
of water
great,
here.
dude. You seem
Yeah.
like you're happy. I'm really glad to hear that.
Yeah.
And so this is what I wanted to ask you.
Yeah.
I'm completely happy for you. I love everything about what you're saying, but I have the question. This is the question for you.
You fired.
This is the question.
Okay.
When are you going to be creative? Because I know, motherfucker, that you're going to be in your mind like,
Yeah.
I want to write something or sing
Oh,
something
man.
or not just get in the room and jam.
Yeah.
I know how you are because
Yeah.
I'm the same way, and Nick maybe the same way sometimes, but you got to be creative for yourself. So
Yeah.
when are you going to fit that in? Because you might be able to go 3 months without doing it.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
on that 4th month, you're going to be like a
So-
little crackhead in the like, I got to write something, I got to write a riff or write a song or
I wrote a full length record in January.
okay.
Just because like it's exactly that. I can't remember if I sent it to you or not.
No, you did, and I tried to listen to it the other day because I love the one song because you used that song to promote your pedal.
Yeah.
So that's why you sent it to me, but it wouldn't download on my phone, so I couldn't listen to it because
Okay.
I couldn't play it. So you'll have to resend it because
Yeah.
I really enjoyed the song. But yeah, I guess that was my question,
Yeah.
right? Because I know how it goes, man.
Yeah.
Everything you're saying, I mean, I'm the choir over here, and you're singing a beautiful song, but like, but when you're talking, I just know that creative itch is still in there.
There's
so.
there'll be moments where it's like it's kind of funny. Okay, you got my brain cooking now. So like now that I've been playing guitar for myself, there's like certain riffs that other guitar players I've always thought were really clever. I was like, hey, I want to learn that. So it's
Right.
like there's one God, who is it? I can't think of his name. He's awesome. Dylan LeBlanc. He has this one song. This chord progression is so cool. So I sat down and learned that. I probably played that for like an hour. You know, so then I'll be like start strumming, and like this is a new thing for me. I have my acoustics tuned to E standard right now.
Oh wow!
Whoa, and just
Whoa.
playing very traditional.
Yeah.
You know, chords, trying to like challenging myself to be like, what can you come up with?
Yeah.
You know, just playing this like what I started on back in the day. There's it was funny. Like I'm going back down the road of like what connected me to music, and one of the bands that was like literally changed the trajectory of my life was the band Russian Circles, the album Enter. And I listened to that yesterday, and I was just like, holy shit. And it just like isn't it crazy how you listen to a record and you just immediately get transported back to that
Oh,
era?
yeah.
You can feel everything around
Mhm.
you, the places, the buildings.
That's why I love music, man.
Yeah, it's
Mhm.
insane. And then I was listening to that, and like it's kind of funny. It's like I'm already kind of an emotional, sensitive guy,
Mm.
but like lately, now that I feel like the wall has been melted in me, like listening to that music, I just felt so emotional. I was like, holy cow, like just brought me back to like me and my brother, like living in this house in the woods. And all we did was just play and play and play and play and play. And then we discovered Russian Circles, like, holy shit, these guys are insane, and trying to be creative like that. And I don't know where I'm going with this, but I do have some shit floating around in my brain. And, cause because I have some ideas of some riffs. Like I have my phone is just filled with voice memos of different stuff, and then Vin taught me about this like Midwest emo tuning. Google it; it's amazing. It is the shapes are very weird because you know how like you play into tuning, it's like you have shapes.
Yeah.
Shapes are weird, but once I gotta figure out the shapes, it's really neat. Did you find it? It's something weird.
Just bouncing back some Reddit favorite emo tuning. What's the
I couldn't
easiest
tell you the
alternate
notes,
emo
but
tuning?
it sounds like if you strum it, it's like it's a chord all on its own.
Oh, really? Just open chord is a
It's
chord.
but it's like I don't know, it's 7s and 9s and 11s or something. It has like this
Yeah.
tension to it.
Yeah.
I mean, I could play something I have strummed in it, but it's like it's really cool. It's like no matter what you play, it sounds cool. It's kind of one of those. I'm like,
Yeah.
but then like if you play something wrong, it sounds terrible.
Just weird as
Yeah.
fuck. Yeah. You play one of your old shapes, you're like, oh, can't
that don't work.
Yeah. That bag of tricks isn't there anymore.
But there's like the playing super heavy crazy shit. Like I also love trying to challenge myself and be like, can I write something cool on just an acoustic guitar?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, be like,
That's
it's
the
like,
challenge.
am I creative enough to come up with something cool on acoustic? Because I'll listen to these, these guys that can play and sing, and I was like, it's just your fucking guitar and your vocals, and you're blowing my mind.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's like I'm so like just guys that can sing. I'm enamored with them.
Yeah.
I'm like, it's
Yeah.
incredible. I'm like, you have such an incredible voice.
Yeah, me too.
I think coming from your acoustic guitar as your origin is a great way to write a song, a
Yeah.
melodic song with appreciation for vocals.
Yeah.
I think, you can do a lot of things on an electric guitar, make a lot of noise, write cool riffs, but I feel like if you can just form chords and strum a guitar and put vocals to that, you can take that, which is a good song, move it into the studio, then start growing it more. Take it apart a little bit. You can, when you start looking at it from what you can do on an electric guitar, because you've been riffing for years,
Yeah.
you're like, yes. And here's where I'm going to go and do that other thing that I like to do with my song that I wrote.
Yeah.
So I think that's a good way to start a creative process, is to be able to form and shape chords, strum an acoustic, sing a song, a verse and a chorus. Then you can move that. That's your song.
Yeah.
Maybe 2 or 3 parts tops. And then you move that into the studio and do all the cool things you do in production
all
with
the
it.
wild shit.
Yeah.
Building on that, yeah.
Yeah, because that way you're definitely going to have a song in the sense of having melody
Yeah.
and structure that way. And then you can do a lot of crazy things beyond that in the studio. But
Yeah.
I think those are to me, those are 2 of the most important things. Is like, just, you got to have some melody and some structure. You got to know that you're writing a song here that makes sense. Just from a listener's point of view and as a fan, like this is what I want to hear. This is what I think music is. But those things for me are, you can get right out of an acoustic guitar.
Yeah.
Piano, if you were so inclined. I'm not a pianist.
Dude, I love piano. That's
But I
another
love
thing is
it.
like I want to take time to learn instruments.
Yeah.
Like pedal steel is an instrument that I love the sound of, but like to be able to take the time to like actually sit and mess with it.
Have you ever heard the dude Bill Murray?
Just recently, yeah.
Yeah.
This
Fucking
name, I got to
so
get into this.
Awesome, man. But like he writes great songs, but he uses a lot of like some of that, like his guitar tone is incredible, but
Yeah.
he uses like some of that pedal steel and lap
Cool.
steel in the music. But man, there's like this weird, like almost sometimes overtone of a country twang to it.
Oh, really?
But
Oh,
it's
sweet.
really heavy at points too. Great song. It's very hard to explain, but my buddy Nate Crane, he showed me him, and I've loved him ever since. Like last year,
shit.
my band was Sleep Token, and I
Yeah.
just loved it, and it was out of left field. This year, it's been Bill Murray because he's just writes great songs.
I'll have to check that out. 'cause
Yeah, dude, you
I've
would
been
like
seeing
it
it pop
production
up.
wise and everything. Because he just the production in the songs, the
Cool.
way they change, great songwriting, great vocals,
Sweet.
awesome tones just on everything. There's like saxophone parts where they kind of jam for a minute, dude. It's incredible.
No
It's
shit.
literally some of the
Okay.
best shit I've ever heard.
Cool.
Like,
no, that's
bullshit.
exciting.
But that just reminded me of that when you said that. Like, so
Rad.
check that out. Like
Oh.
how you can incorporate it. You don't have to write country to incorporate it.
Yeah,
You know, he kind of
yeah.
puts a passage in there. I'm like, I would have never thought of that, but that's cool as fuck, you know?
Yeah.
Like,
Oh, that is cool. I like that a lot.
Yeah.
There's like you were talking about stripping down with acoustic.
Mm.
My diet version of that when I was writing these tunes, I would just use one distortion pedal, and I was like, I need to write
Mhm.
like so I was talking to Dane about this, and I had this one riff I messed with, and the song was like 2 minutes long. He's like, Doc, he's like, just write 13 bangers. I was like, okay.
Yep.
And so it's like every song in a row is like 2 minutes long.
Yep.
But it's just like there's no garbage. I remember saying to Vin, Vin's like, I have 2 rules. No intros, no fade outs. They're like no bullshit. Like my brother. And so I was like, do you think I should cut this intro? He's just like, let me tell you the 3 rules I learned. But it's just like classic him. It was something like that. He's like, no intros, no fade outs. Just
No
like
bullshit.
yeah, or something like that. And so it's like, so I did exactly that. And like, I have a song that's like 1:46, but it feels like it's 4 minutes long. It's like, I'm like, okay, cool. It's just like boom, 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 boom.
Yeah.
I wish I would have had queued up to play, because I have a lot of it's like in pre-pro stage right now. Because I would just like, my goal was to like, was to write, I was writing 1 to 2 songs a day. And like, so I would just pick up my guitar and then I'd just try and write the simplest, heaviest fucking riff I could. And then I'd be like, that's sick. Flip it. Find the next spot.
Build off of that.
And then be like, and then I'd come back and then I had my system, because I had like everything set up at the house. I had my amp set up, had the mics already set up on the cab downstairs, just one microphone. It was perfect. Just simple as fuck. I recorded the guitar, left, I double it, and I did everything to a metronome so I could fucking copy and paste shit and throw it around as I needed. And then I plugged my bass in the same amp, same rig, everything, play the bass part. Then I go through and I would, if I couldn't tap it out with my MIDI drums, then I would just draw the MIDI out and I'm like, that's sick. And then I had my vocal mic already set up and I'd nail vocals. And then I just kept doing the same thing. I had everything all set up so I could just go proop, 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 and all the guitars leaning up against the thing. So I was just like, oh, switch. And I was like, I had the same setting on I used the Godstone pedal because I just let that thing just sounds just growly and pissed. And I used that on everything. I was like, this sounds awesome. This sounds awesome. And I was like, ooh, and I'm like, I haven't used this guitar. I'm going to play this guitar. And so then, but it was fun. It's like before I knew it, I'm like, there's 2 songs I'm going to cut. Okay. I'm like, they're cool, but I'm just like, there's a certain vibe. I'll listen to it every once in a while. I was like, this actually sounds kind of cool. Where I think I'm like not even going to overthink it and redo anything. I might just leave it as is, and then just retrack the vocals that I tracked when I was sick. Oh, and so it's like where it's just like really struggling to hit some tones and pitches.
Sure.
Auto tune couldn't save my life on those.
So you're still being creative, at least.
Yeah.
Let's go back a little bit, because you had mentioned this, and this is when I did interrupt you and we kind of went off on a tangent. You're talking about the pedals.
Yeah.
So the last time you were here, that was something you were really focused on, and then you had alluded to it, and then we kind of went to a different direction.
Yeah.
So what's going on with the pedals?
Okay. We'll rewind. So last time we were here, it was like I was pressing the gas. I was go, and I was starting to get going. So like I have 3 designs, and so like I was readying myself. So the way my mind was thinking is like, it's funny how all I thought about was marketing. Is like, I need people to know that this exists. And then I stay on focus here, trying to stay focused. So I'm like, because like 3 things popped in my head. It's the ADD brain, man. This squirrel mind. So I'm ramping everything.
Like that one out there.
Yeah, exactly.
Fuck.
Just in a cage, bouncing around,
caged up.
Yeah,
biting the side.
And so I'm ramping up and just kind of a trickle here and there. People are like, oh, that's cool. I'll give it a shot. That's cool. And then it's self a few, and then it started to be outside of the friend group. Then more people would check it out, and then I connected with Rattlesnake and did a giveaway with them, which was cool. And Hank was incredible, super supportive guy, and that guy's been in the industry for a while, so he had some really great knowledge that he bestowed upon myself. And Blake, the Bronson arm guitar player, he's also a pedal builder. And so I was ramping up for that. And then I actually borrowed a chunk of cash from my dad, because I was like, I printed out all the guitar shops in Michigan, and my plan was like, I'm going to go door-to-door salesman. I'm going to bring all my pedals. I had my wholesale sheet. I was going to go door to say, hey, will you carry my pedals? Mm-hmm. The only thing that I was apprehensive of was, at that point, I was just like, well, if I was going to go see, I think I had like 15 or 20 stores, and I was like, 5 of them bite. then I don't have enough inventory to fulfill these orders.
Right.
So I reached out to my dad and said, "Hey, Dad, this is my plan." And so he spotted me a little bit of cash so I could order all the inventory. So just in case I had this come through. Right as I was getting ready to do this, that's when our relationship kind of went. Life happened.
Mhm.
Yeah, and so that like really took the wind out of my sails big time because I know we had been trying to connect about doing something. And I just I had no ambition for anything, and it was tough. So my shop is still in the basement of the house. I still have enough product to build a ton of shit. I thought about like the other thing is just like I was thinking to myself, I'd started training a couple of guys on how to build, like Carl from the band American Cheese. I had spoken with him. He's like, dude, I'd love to learn. So I was bringing him over to the house, teaching him how to build, how to solder. And then the other guitar player, Ross, I brought him over. I was teaching him how to solder and how to build because I was like, it's challenging to be, I got to spend all this time building all these things, and I got to spend this time marketing these things. And then, if I have to, troubleshoot a build that didn't, it's not working. So it's like, okay, why isn't it working? And so, along the way, I learned a ton of manufacturing stuff from being in GE. Like we manufacture electronics for aviation and military, so it's like I got to see how the big boys do it, and so I adopted a lot of that stuff for myself. And so and then I like since I've kind of like I just tabled it, and then like financially it's like the commitment for maintaining my LLC and then maintaining my website and my store. And so I was just like, man, I literally just was like, I paused everything and then I ended up canceling everything. I was just like, I can't afford, $40 a month for my website, for the Shopify and all that stuff. I was like, man, oh man. And if I'm generating the sales, and then it's just like during that time, like when I was transitioning to like moving in my new apartment, I had like 2 orders come in, and it was the most stressful thing in the world. I was like, I don't remember the state of what I have built at the house. And I was like, oh, I have circuit cards built. All I got to do is drill an enclosure and put it together, and I can get it out. But it was such a thing, and it was so overwhelming towards like, now I got to find time to go over there and build this. And then like I've got equipment everywhere. So I'm like, I need to figure out how to test this because I don't have a cab set up. All my cabs are in storage. All my amps are in storage. But I have my guitars at the house in cases. I don't even know where my cables are. And I'm just like, this is too much.
Yeah.
And then in the meantime, like I've connected with some guys at work. I was like, because there's this piece of me that I was like, it'd be really cool to have these things out in the world again. And I have some like the Clarity pedal, like the one that's like I use both the Clarity and the Godstone on my rig and Tiny Tree. But I was like, since then I was like, well, there's some tweaks I would make. I want to open the low end up a little bit more and offer just a little bit more, not too many options, because I love how dumb it is. I love volume and gain. I was like, to me, it's just like, it's ready to go. If it works for you, cool. If it doesn't, that's fine.
Yeah.
It's like you pick up a pedal, you're like, I like this.
Yeah.
You can tell right away if you plug in a pedal if it's going to work for you. And then the knobs just bring it home.
Right.
So I'm just like, it's just another, tool in the toolbox.
Yeah.
And so I was like, there's a couple things I was like, I just tweak that to make it easier on me, and then give the musician a little more choices. But then there's another person that I follow that does designing and building for pedals, and there are pedal businesses that are going out of business left and right, and the economy's not helping. So I connected with a couple other pedal builders and say, hey, how are you guys doing in sales? Like, man, we are scraping by trying to get people to buy stuff. And just other stuff like auxiliary money is it's a rarity right now. It's like I even think about myself. I'm like, man, I need this. But I was just like, dude, $100 is I got to think about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
It's and so then I'm just thinking like, well, if it came down to a pedal where it's just like, well, I can go get a 2-screamer used out of Reverb for $70.
Right. There's that, and there's also like how many, and a lot of bands that we listen to on the show that people send in, how many people are just doing everything in the box.
Right.
Everything's just an interface and STL tones now, or neural DSP, or
how
quad
cool
cortex.
Is the neural stuff, dude. Their shit's insane.
Yeah, that quad cortex looks sick. I wish I had $2,000 to spend on it.
I know.
But yeah, that's part of it too. But there are also more bands than ever touring and playing out live. So, I mean, there is a market there for it. It's just, is the pedal market something that is the smartest thing to do right now, basically?
I don't know. The big thing was like, it was kind of like a passion thing for me, because like the way I
Mm.
was thinking about it is like my interest lies more in designing studio gear. But then I was like, in my brain, I was like, well, I already have a couple pedal designs in my brain. I'll just get the ball rolling and throw these out. Because I have a couple of pieces that I want to build for myself for like studio stuff.
Yeah.
And, you know, but that is a little bit higher dollar things where it's like it's going to cost me a little bit more to figure it out and then actually manufacture it and then release it out in the world. It'll be one of those things where I might sell 1 or 2 a year.
Yeah.
But it's worth it.
Right.
Because there's pieces of gear that I use the plug-in version, and I was like, man, I'd love to own the real thing. And I was like, I look at the real thing price, and I was like, I'm just gonna have to stick with the plug-in.
You're like, that's why I got the plug-in. Yeah.
Yeah, because like it's funny how like when I got I used the Waves CLA 76.
Yep.
And the Blue Stripe one, I like that one, and then I bought the Black Lion Audio Blue Stripe compressor, and like while they sound very similar, the hardware to me is just like, oh, this is leaps and bounds.
Yeah.
You know?
Yep.
And so there's that piece, and like the other thing too is like I've gotten to this point to where I have like certain like chains just built in my rack of different tools, and then I just fire stuff over to them. Versus like I don't move any of the knobs. I just will change how much I send into it. Like I have my compressor vocal chain. Like I'll give you a story. The Vin's band, Best Noodles in Town. Have you listened to them?
Oh yeah.
Dude, they're so good.
Yeah. Really badass.
And so I remember when I was mixing Trevor's vocal is I was drawing inspiration from the band Copeland. The band Copeland, like Aaron Marsh's vocals are so velvety clear. And I wanted that we tracked it with the warm U47, so we had a nice rich tone coming in. I was really happy with it. But then I got greedy. I was like, can we make it better? Like I was using like, you know, I auditioned so many compressors, and I feel like every compressor wasn't grabbing it and smoothing it out the way I wanted. So I was like, I feel like I just need stuff in the signal path. So something that I would do is I would just patch in like a channel strip and like just plug it in, just send it through. I was like, oh, that helped a lot. And then I'm like, well, I've got all these compressors that have literally been collecting dust. Because I've been doing so much in the box, I'll use it tracking.
Yeah.
But even in tracking, sometimes I was just using my board, and then I was using plugins because it's just easier and faster.
Yeah.
So then I started messing with it. So I was like, I patched in the Blue Stripe, and I was like, okay, this is good. And then I patched in my DBX 160, and then I patched in my Rocktron, which is actually a guitar compressor. But it like has a leveler and a compressor, but the leveler was really slow, like an LA2A. And so I just kind of like massaged them all to where each compressor was doing a little bit. And I was like, son of a bitch, if that didn't fucking put the vocal exactly where I wanted it. And I was like, just having just a
shit.
little
bit everywhere. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just having shit in the fucking path.
Yeah.
And so now it's just like, so now I'm like, hey, that worked great. I leave it hooked up. And so now I was like, oh, so I have a insert preset saved. I was like, boop, send there. Because I have an outboard master bus compressor. I just send it out and send it back in.
Yeah.
So now, like, where I'm at now is I've got my console is just sitting in a closet, which is kind of depressing.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you next, and this is probably a good time to talk about it. Let's talk a little bit about Analog Time Machine.
Yeah.
And it's like your equipment, and because I heard you say you have an apartment, so
Yeah.
there's not a full studio built in there.
I am mixing in headphones right now.
Really?
Yeah, it's, you know what's crazy? So
Get them Slate headphones.
I want, dude,
Dude.
that's actually on my list.
Yeah, they're so
Do you have
good.
them?
Yeah, I got them.
Okay, I hear they're amazing.
Good. They're so good.
Okay.
But anyway.
Yes. The only reason that like I continued forward with it was when I sent a track to my buddy Blake to master, and he goes, because he knew I'd been working out at Cold War. He said, "Did you mix this at Cold War?" I was like, "No, I mixed it at my house." He goes, "Really?" I said, "I mix it in headphones." He goes, "What headphones are you using?" And I was like, a while ago, I had bought these Sony noise canceling headphones, and like I'm a bit of a diva. I was just like, they have to sound good. And so like I went to Walmart, and it was like I listened to all of them. I was like, these sound the most neutral and well balanced. They're like the WX 1000 or something, WHX. And then I realized they have a plug on them. I was like, oh, I could just I could do some edits because I did. So I mixed the dies. That was the first thing I mixed in my house. Those are single Judas. I mixed that on my speakers, but then I was bouncing back and forth through my headphones and the speakers. And so then, like, that turned out good. I was like, okay. Because then I built confidence in my room, because, like, my room before, I had it treated all perfect. So I was super nervous about listening to the speakers in the room, because I was like, what if my low end's off or whatever? So I was auditioning the headphones. So then I was mixing that tiny tree, and that's what I sent to my buddy Blake, and he was just like, this sounds incredible. And I said, okay, so now I got it figured out. And then I was mixing the tongue cutter at the same time. And I remember, so we tracked the tongue cutter in two things. I'm going to get back to where I'm going.
It's all good.
Yeah. So we tracked like 7 songs at my house with the Analog Time Machine, and then they locked that deal down with Learning Curve. And Chantal was like, well, let's do a full-length record. And they wrote 5 or 6 more songs. And so, like, the thing was, when we tracked at Cold War, is I tried my best to, like, use exactly the same stuff to try and, like, match them. But it sounded different in a good way. There's Rick's studio sounds really cool. And then Rick has some of the coolest toys. It's a lot of fun. But I remember I was listening to the stuff we tracked at Rick's, and I was like, I like this so much more. So I mixed that chunk first. I remember saying to Chantal, I was like, tell me what you think. She's like, dude, this sounds insane. Mix it on my headphones. And I was like, so I'm like, okay, cool. I said to her, I'm like, this either sounds incredible or it's total shit.
Yeah.
You ever have that moment? You were like, you're vibing on it so hard. You're like, this is either really good or this is really bad.
Yeah.
And so I sent it to her, and she's just like, holy shit, dude, this sounds awesome. I said, cool. And then I went back and, like, matched the two. I remixed the first one and matched them, and it turned out well. And then, so now, like, the kids and I were in different rooms, and we switched rooms. And so now the room I'm in, I don't even have my speakers hooked up at all, because I don't have any space for them. And so I've just been leaning on my headphones, and now I've got it, like, to where I know exactly where everything needs to sit, where I'm just like, okay. And then I can pull it out, and I'll listen to it elsewhere, and I'm like, everything's good. Because, like, when I had my room, like, if I were to just, like, oh, this mix is great, I bounce it and I just send it over to you. And it's like, I know that when you listen to it, like, it's going to be balanced everywhere. Because I'd mix so much stuff on that system.
They're used to that room,
those
speakers, how everything worked. Yep.
So it's just like I was already accustomed to that. And so starting over, so to speak. And that's where I was like, I had been looking at those slates, because I was like, wow, then I got all these rooms to choose from.
Dude, they're amazing. They've upped my mixing game so much.
Sweet.
Like, when I do mixes for, like, some of the hip hop artists or whatever, I'll listen to them in there, and they're, like, floored with the mixes that I'm getting. And it's like,
cool.
Streamlines it so much more, because there's a bypass on them too, so you can bypass all the stuff, and they're just a flat response headphone.
No shit.
So if they sound great in there, then you can start messing with the rooms. You kind of let your ear develop a little bit, but, like, you basically are doing the car test by doing the SUV right there, because I bought one of the pack. They have even more rooms that I don't have. But yeah, they've made my mixes so much better, man. I'll still take it out of the car, and do reference mixes with it or whatever, but just being able to incorporate those. I don't even mix through the speakers anymore, because I just realized how bad the mixes sound, because my room sounds like such shit.
Yeah.
So I only mix with those now.
That's cool to hear, because the other thing too is, like, tracking at Rick's. It's kind of funny. So I was having, like, this meltdown where I'm, like, listening to records that I was doing. I was like, is my mid-range heavy enough on these guitars? Just, like, being like, I feel like my mid-range sucks. Like, it's not cool. And then I realized, so then I'm going here all of a sudden. That was the other thing I was really thankful for, is getting kicked out of my home and having to go to Rick's studio. Because, like, the first 2 things I tracked there, I felt like a fish out of water. It's like, everything sounds different. Everything sounds weird. Nothing feels right. And I was just like, I'm gonna fuck these records up. Like that, just like I was just like freaking out inside, because I'm just like, I don't like the way any of his speakers sound. I was like, these all sound like shit to me. And then when, like, the first mix I did that I tracked there was the Dye's Judas. And so then when I finished mixing that and I heard it back, I was like, okay, I got a little bit of confidence restored. So he has these Atom speakers. And I don't know what he did. He got these new speakers, and now they're in position. Hated the way they sound. Now I love them. And since I've been tracking with those, my guitars sound way better. And then what was cool is the latest Dye single, I tracked it and they sent it to Nick Scott to mix.
The one they just did.
The one they just
Yeah,
did.
they're going to be on the show next Friday. This won't be this, so we can talk all about that.
Okay,
too. So,
cool.
Yeah, because they're actually going to be on the show. We're going to premiere the song on the show.
Sweet.
So you'll have to listen to the show to hear the song like a day before it comes out or whatever. So
Awesome.
we're going to do that. But they're coming on next Friday. But we're sliding that into the schedule so we can meet their release date, which I think is the 12th. So we can
Badass.
talk whatever about
Cool.
that because
All right.
this will be out after that. So
Yeah, because it's done.
yeah.
And so it was exciting because I tracked all these stuff on these on these Atom speakers, and he uses the same speakers, and so I was like, and then when he shot back, he said these are cool tones. I was like, sweet. It was kind of like, it was exciting to. I feel like there's been moments to where like guys that are like in the industry, like that's their job when they sign off on something you do. Like, do you know who Josh Schrader is?
Yeah.
Okay, he mastered the Noodles record.
Okay.
And what was really exciting for me is like back in the day when Vin and I lived over in the Thumb, he's in a band called Besieged. He was the drummer. We used to go see him play at hall shows like with other bands. And so Trevor had recorded with Josh way before he blew up and then connected with him. He's like, it'd be kind of cool to have all Michigan guys do our record. So I recorded, mixed it. They sent it to Josh. And I reached out to Josh. I was like, here's my in to talk to this guy, because it's like he's a real deal guy.
Right. Yeah.
And Trevor goes, when he sent it to him, Josh goes, this sounds incredible. Who did it? I was like, Josh Schrader said my work sounds good.
Nice.
And then shot at me, and we talked shop for a few emails, and that was really exciting just to kind of get that like no, you're doing good.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Just to kind of get that attaboy from someone who does this all the time. And same thing with Nick, where it's like there were some things that he requested for, like, he's like, hey, set a couple of these mics up for me. And then I told him, I was like, I had to leave a little bit of like my touch that I was here, like some things that I've discovered. And he was just like, actually, he's like, that was really cool to hear, because he's like, that got his creative juices flowing. And it was just exciting to hear that, like, the tracked mix and the mix. I was like, oh, wow, it's just like the track mix just really fucking tight and clean.
Yeah.
And that would just kind of gave me that another little boat of confidence where it's like, okay, cool. Like, I'm doing well. Because I think no matter how good you get, you're always super insecure.
Oh yeah, for sure. That'll never go away. Is it ever good enough or whatever?
You listen to somebody else, it's like, God, these guitars are so heavy.
And Nick's crazy talented with it. He's like so good at like all the things, So I'm sure he did a great job. Ephraim hit me up yesterday. I think he's like, "You want to hear it?" And I was like, "We'll just wait to the show that way and give you an honest reaction because I don't want to listen to it."
Oh yeah, and then have to phone it in.
He's like, it sounded so heavy, dude. I'm like, I trust. Like, we
yeah.
love the last one you brought on the show, but
that was good.
Yeah, so we'll listen to it on Friday. But
oh, dude, it's
I'm
cool.
excited.
Like, we could talk about that. I want to talk about a little bit because it's exciting.
Talk about whatever you want, buddy.
So there's some toys. Rick has so many toys. I love it.
You were saying,
and it's fun. It's funny. That guy is like the most chill dude. Have you guys ever met Rick Johnson?
No. I haven't.
Dane thinks it's hilarious because I'm like a yippy little puppy, and he's just like the old wise Yoda. Like when I ran sound for them at the Pyramid Scheme.
Yeah. Which sounded great, by the way.
Thank you.
Made that video come out awesome.
Oh, dude, that was fun all around. That everything's so cool.
That was cool. We got to hang that day too.
Oh, I know. I enjoyed that very much. Yeah, that's what I was in it at that point. Like Tara and I were just on the beginning of all that stuff. At that show. But anyway, but like the show day, I remember just being like, yeah, I'm thinking this. He goes, yeah, you don't need that. You don't want that. He's like, I'm gonna set you up here, and it's like, just trust me. And he's right. It's like, because he just has so much wisdom. I'll be like, well, I want to make sure I have this option here and this. He's like, you don't need that. You don't need that. He's like, you just use that and you'll be fine. And I'm like, cool. And it's like, he was right.
Less is more sometimes.
Because I like, there's ways I had, because like I'd spent so much time doing sound at Unruly. I was super nervous because I hadn't done sound in a minute, and then I'd never worked on a Midas board. So I'm like freaking the fuck out. I'm like, holy shit, I've never worked on the system. And then so Rick's like, tell me what you need. And I was like, well, I said, give me these like this. I basically said, I'm like, how I used to run stuff at Unruly. And I was like, and just in case, can you give me these subgroups? And he's like, you don't need any of those. I'm like, cool. So I trust him. I was like, dude knows what's up. He does incredible sound. Yeah. And so, and like you guys were there, like turned out great.
Yeah.
Loved it.
So then same thing at the studio. like I would post a picture of like something I did. He's like, "Oh, you use one of those mics." He goes, "Next time you're there," he's like, "use this microphone here." And I was like, "Cool." And I do it. I'm like, "That's incredible." He's like, "Yeah, it's a good one."
Yeah, he's
It's a good one.
And then it'd just be kind of funny. I was like telling him like, because he has all the real life hardware of stuff that exists in plugin land. So I'm
Yeah.
like, cool, I'm gonna start auditioning this stuff. And I was like, yeah, I use this weekend. I love it. I use this weekend. I use this weekend or whatever. And he's just like, I'm sorry for your future wallet.
yeah, no shit.
But it's so like we'll use that as the caveat to the future of Analog Time Machine. So right now, I am absolutely loving working out of Rick's space, and for the foreseeable future, I think I'm gonna keep going down that road. I go there, I pay him for the time that I'm there, and then, it's been great. He has everything that I need, and then I have like my desert island tools that I bring in, amps, cabs, mics, and stuff like that, and then we share. So it's like I leave several of my amps there, so if he wants to use them, he can, which is great. And then I've been really enjoying just mixing at home. So I think for the future for me right now is I'm toying with selling my console.
Okay.
And building more like a 500 series setup, like building like, because I love API. Like
Yeah.
my console, I really kind of favored some API stuff in what I did to it. And then Rick has some APIs there, and I really like the way they sound.
So those are preamps.
Preamps, yep. I'm using the
APIs.
API preamps. So I was thinking, if anything, like, building a bunch of API preamps, and then maybe, snagging a few things off Reverb of stuff that I know I like after using at Rick's. Because Rick, a lot of the tools he has are like kits that he bought and built, and they sound incredible. But for right now, I'm honestly in no hurry to get my own studio for tracking up and going right now. It's one less thing I have to worry about.
Yeah.
Which has been great, because like, especially being at the house, is like I lived there, so anytime a band was coming over, like, the leading up to it, turn out, make sure we were clean and everything, and like getting out of the house, like put back together. I'd go through and double check and make sure all my channels are behaving since last time, and clean everything, and just maintain it so it's presentable. Especially if it's a first time a band's coming through, it's like, you need to have a little bit of that wow factor when someone walks through the door instead of a
Right.
What's this?
So, but yeah, I love working on a Rick space. And the other thing that is convenient, it seems to be more convenient being in Grand Rapids for bands traveling.
Oh yeah.
And there's options nearby. Like in Montague, like I was a mile or two from, Whitehall, Montague, which had stuff. But like, being in a big city, you have big city amenities.
Yeah.
Which is nice.
Yeah.
And the other nice thing too is I can work later there. Like we're at the house where it's like I can't track drums till midnight.
Right.
There's been a couple times where we'd be tracking, and I'd be like, "Hey, let's not come in tomorrow and let's just work late." And the band would be like, "Sounds great."
Sweet.
So, so I think that's my plan. I'm gonna keep mixing. I have my setup at the house and headphones, and now that I have sign off on the VSX, because I see the ads and I like him, like I should buy this.
Yeah, it's worth it. Man.
What is it, like $400
like
bucks?
$300.
Okay.
Like if you're doing mixing and you're mixing at home in headphones, like
Yeah.
it just gives you so many options, and it will transform your mixes as far as like getting just that flat response
Cool.
that you wouldn't normally hear. It's not hiding any of those frequencies, and it's not ducking any of them because it's bouncing off this wall back onto that wall, and you're hearing it.
Yeah.
Take up that 8K in your ear too much or whatever,
Cool.
So I really like them, man. They've turned my mixes around. I don't even do as much, I kind of just do the pod and play with iron, and that's kind of where we're at. And I don't,
Cool.
I'll mix a little bit here, mix a little bit there, but that's not even my thing anymore. But they're definitely worth the money.
That's cool, because I am in an apartment, so it's like
Yeah,
when I had my speakers, like, and I have a sub, and I'm like, I can't do that.
Yeah.
Like, as much as I want to give them a little bit of a crack into it, I'm
Yeah.
like, and so it's like I just get so nervous about frustrating other people with my decisions.
yeah. Those headphones are awesome.
So that's
So coldwarstudios.com, he's got a great website. I mean, I was looking at it last night. It shows all of his, it shows a little bit about, where he's at, about his story. And so you just kind of rent out a space for him.
Yep. Yeah. So like,
you do the same tracking rates as he has then too on the website, because he does $40 an hour for recording, or $350 for a 10-hour block, or
right now I am the same at $40 an hour
okay.
for recording, and I do $75 an hour for mixing. I am going to probably the next year change my tracking rate, just because like I have to travel now, and I have to pay
so you
for,
got to incorporate that,
and then I'm also paying to use
to
the
be
space.
there.
Yep. So,
yeah, exactly.
So that's the one kicker. I was thinking about just doing a flat $75 an hour all the way around.
What if somebody wanted to track with you and not Rick? Do they still go onto there? Or do they get a hold of you personally?
They just hit me up. Yeah.
Okay.
But we'll be just using his space.
Okay, cool.
So,
I just wanted to know
Yep.
because he does have a cool, nice.
Did he put my name on there?
No.
Oh,
It
I
was
saw
all,
that. I saw my name, and I was like, I was like, oh, Rick, that's nice. Yep. No, I'm just because like the other thing too is like I was thinking, like watching like Warren Hewitt produce like a pro. I used to watch his videos all the time.
Yeah.
It's like out in LA, it's like if you were a recording engineer, you would just like rent a studio in the band.
Room A or room B.
You'd be like, hey, we're gonna go record at this studio.
Yeah.
And so I've like wondered to myself, like, because I kind of like freelancing. Like this is kind of nice to where I'm like, there was one project that I was talking with a band, and I was like, I think I would like the room at Third Coast in Grand Haven. I wonder if they do that. Because I think I reached out to them a long time ago about Tiny Tree. I was like, hey, can I rent your studio? And they didn't respond to me until like 3 or 4 months later, which I thought was unreal. Like I'm trying to get work.
Yeah.
And then they were just like, well, rent out our studio? You don't want to use our staff? I was like,
no.
Well, no. I was like, maybe as if like it comes as part of the rate as the assistant, like they know how to patch everything in and stuff like that. It's like absolutely, I'd
where
love
are your
that.
mics? Where are your stands?
Like help me out. It's like if they're going to be part of the rate, but it's like I really just want to come in and just use your space.
Yeah.
And so I don't know if they do that. I should probably reach out to them because there's a couple of times where I was just like, it'd be kind of handy. Like there was one band, there's just going to be a lot of inputs and a lot of space required, and I was like, they have it. I was like, well, how much would it cost to rent that and just go track it there, and I'll just bring it home.
Yeah.
Right. So.
Yeah, Kill Tomorrow did their record there, but with the people from there, so you'd have to listen to what they said. Oh, did you?
I know I listened to the record, and I was like, Third Coast doesn't do heavy music.
They said that. Basically, Dice said that, and they said they had some issues. Like,
really?
There was a lot of back and forth with the mixing and mastering of it. And
well, the thing I was thinking, I remember they posted a picture of them going to Third Coast, like they were tracking there, and my first thought is like, do these guys know that I'm around?
Jeez.
Like I remember thinking that I was just like, I'm like, because they did their last record with the Odies. Like Odies do heavy music.
Yeah, they did a lot of records, almost all the records with the Odies. I think.
So I was like, that makes sense. Like Odies know how to do heavy records, so pick someone that knows heavy music.
Right.
And it's like there's so many great options like nearby of guys that know how to do heavy music. I can think of like 3 off the top of my head that know how to do heavy shit.
Right.
I'm just like, and I remember seeing that. I'm like, these guys know that I do records. It's like I could get them. So, this like I remember listening to it, and I was just like, okay.
Yeah, it took them a long time to get it out too. Like,
the other thing that I was scared of, just as like I was terrified to find out how much they spent.
Did they tell you?
No, because I just think to myself like like I would talk to bands that do records like how much you spent on that record. And I was like, okay, cool. How many hours do you have into? I was like, and that's why I realized I was too cheap. That was a big thing where I was just like, it's like you spent $6,000 on that record. I just turned out a record almost identical to that for $1,700.
Yeah.
But I also had to learn how to work fast because I had bands coming in on a shoestring budget. So I was like, I need to track everything, and I learned how to leave myself breadcrumbs all along the way. And so that's where I upped my mixing rate because I'm like, a year ago, it took me 35 hours to mix a 50-minute record. Now I just mix out an entire 50-minute record in 20 hours because I'm getting better at tracking. Because that's the thing. It's like when I sent everything tracked over to Nick, it was just like, I was like, oh, it sounds exactly like the tracking. It's just clean up.
You get that sound before the mic. That's something that I learned from you a long time ago too, is like to try not to, like when you're recording, think about mixing at the same time because that's just going to make it a lot easier in your mix. And plus you want to make sure you get that great sound going in, and then it just makes it easier to mix because then all of them, frequencies are filled out in the right way and everything's clean and sounds nice
Yeah.
beforehand. So
And that was really cool, like doing the dye stuff. So it's like I always tell a band whenever I do a record with them the first time, and I'm like, if they come back the second time around, I'm like, the second one's going to be better because we know how each other work. You understand me, I understand you. I understand even more so everything that you like, your tastes. And then the other thing too is like I'll take Arson for instance. We did their first record. They came back and they did their second record. And their second record, they wrote an incredible record.
I listened to some of it.
That record, I was just like, holy shit, this is great. And just making myself at home over here. And but then like there's things I was like, I'm gonna scale back here and I'm gonna focus on this next time and then you get a better product. So like when we did the Judas single, and I remember I was talking to EP, I'm like, this time we track bass, I'm gonna do this. And this time on guitar, I'm gonna focus on this. And then same thing with like drums with Dana. So Dana, because I finally figured out Rick's room too, like working in that space, I understood like, oh, this is how the room sounds. 'Cause I've been tracking in a while, so I understood how that room worked. Because they were like the second project I did there. And so I was like, I know
Judas.
Yeah, at Cold War. So it was like, so then I'm just like, so now I know, I kind of have my tricks in my bag now. I was like, oh, this is the preamp for this one. I want to use this. This is a nice sounding EQ for this. Like I've auditioned these on other bands, and so when they came in, it's like we got a ripping drum tone, bass tone. It's like all these little things, and then like Tom had like his guitar tone figured out. And which was kind of cool
because he uses neural DSP,
and that's what we used.
Yeah.
So my one thing that I love to do is, I think this is great, and I've embraced it. Is if bands have XFX, Helix, all that stuff, computer guitar tones, bring it. Let's use it. And then I just pump that into either a tube power amp from one of my amps, or with Tom, he's like, honestly, dude, it'd just be easier to plug it right out of my Crown power amp into a 4x12. And the thing that is really great, especially for heavy stuff, it's quieter.
Yeah.
It's cleaner.
Yeah.
And it's just like, his tone was just like ripping. He's just like, I already got it figured out. And it's just ready to go. So it's like, sweet, let's just put mics on it. And then it sounded so good. And he was using like the Gojira amps.
Yeah.
And then I asked him, I said, what would be a good amp for B? Because there's two amps I kind of had picked out that we were going to use for B-Man after, I've gotten the No Rick stash. And he's just like, let me see. So we auditioned a couple, and I think we ended up on like, it was like a CL Plus Mesa or something. It looked kind of like a Mark IV, but like tan.
Yeah.
Sounded cool.
Yeah.
It sounded like old Mastodons. We're like, oh, this is sweet. But it was just really neat. And it was just like right there. It's like we saved so much time getting an amp hooked up, plugged in. It's like we go plop, 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 plop. But there's one thing that I just can't seem to kick is like with the amp sims, it's like they gotta go through a speaker cab. That's the one thing I've realized. Because like they sound cool, but as soon as they go through like the cab and with mics is like, then it sounds real to me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
You get that impulse response, that IR, you know what I mean?
It's close.
Yeah.
But then like when you actually like hear it back.
Yeah, you got to get that wolf of the speaker. So, Jens Bogren, his stuff.
I know the name, yeah.
So he has a thing called Bogren Digital, and that's like a lot of his stuff. But he's developed this amp, and I actually bought it. That it's not just an IR, but it like simulates the pump of that speaker. So you.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So it's like his own technology that he created, but it's within the amp sim. So I was like, I gotta buy this amp sim and check it out. And I really like it. It sounds great, dude. I really like it. But he
that's sweet.
So you can like, it's nice because it's just one knob too. So you can like crank it all the way up if you want to hear a lot of like woof or whatever, and then you can kind of like turn it down and you can kind of see the difference. It's kind of sweet the way he did it because
that's cool.
He works a lot of in with the impulse responses, and he's got all the packs and all that, drum sounds, and his stuff's really, really good. But all the records he's mixed, like Sepultura records, and
they sound great,
dude. He's a monster when it comes to metal. Like,
dude, I love it.
So like knowing his tools and his tones and stuff like that. And then he's made. Have you seen that one knob stuff? It's just like the little. That's his stuff too.
Oh, really?
Okay. In digital or whatever.
Yes.
But he just makes it simple. Where it's like gain, turn it up, turn it down. I used the one knob bass amp when I was tracking some bass stuff, and it sounded great. But
perfect.
He's like, I just want to make it simple for users to use, and you just pull it up and.
I love it.
One knob,
dude. That's the technology now is so great, and I've really just accepted it. Like I use a Helix Live, and I love it.
Yeah.
It's it's made life simple. There's and the nice thing is I can keep all my tube amps at home. So if we want to have play day, we can use those. But
Right.
it's so great. And then there's been more than not bands I've tracked off of digital stuff, like the Noodles guys. Like, we already have our guitar tones figured out. I'm like, cool. We'll just plug it into a amp or a power
Reamp
amp.
it. Is that
And
what
then-
you do then? Reamp it? Is that
Essentially,
kinda
so
what you're
they play it, and then we just use their amp tone. I just run it through the power amp of like one of my tube amps, and I mic the cab,
Yeah.
so I can get that tone shaping, get that
yeah.
little razzle dazzle.
Yeah.
Like I did that way. Same thing with Slug Child. I didn't have any heavy amps on hand, so I DI'd him into, I can't remember what amps we used. I used STL tones, took the impulse off, dumped it into a power amp, one of the two power amps, and mic the cab, and then we auditioned heavy amps that way.
It's a nice way to audition amps too, because
Yeah.
you can just kind of flip
Click,
through
click,
there and
click.
find a tone instead of like
tweak and dial.
fucking knob turning all day or
Yeah.
tone chasing all day. You can kind of get some good tones right off.
It's
some
it's
basic
great,
shit.
and it's embracing the tools. I've just gotten to the point where it's like I don't find anything. I was like, to me, I think it's a pride thing. I remember being younger, being like, no samples ever. I was like, dude, it's a tool to be creative with. I was like, what's wrong with samples?
Yeah.
If it's gonna make something exciting and fun and get a product that's making the listener excited, then it is just another tool in the tool bag.
Yeah, exactly.
You
It doesn't
know?
have to be used for everything.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be used the only thing,
Yeah,
but it's just
it's
another
there.
tool.
You want to use it because
Yep,
there will be times where like on Vin, on the Noodles record, like I listened to it and I was like, man, I don't think I need any. And then there'll be sometimes it's like I need a little bit more out of that kick drum. It's usually always the kick drum I tend to pull up a sample because I'm like, that's the one thing where I just get really picky on. There's something so nice about having the consistency of a sample on the kick drum. You're just like, it's like, oh, that low end's gonna be the same every time.
Yes.
Perfect,
Yeah.
sweet.
Yeah.
Oh, that click attack's gonna be the same every time. Cool.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just you don't have to think about it. It is
So
great.
tell me a little
yeah.
bit about Arsum though, because I know you had hit me up and you're like,
Oh,
you gotta
yeah.
have these guys on the band, and I listened to one of their songs, just one of their songs because it
Yeah.
was a long ass song.
Yeah.
They put out this album called Arrival at Grief, and you just put it out in June 2024. But you
Yeah.
did you mix it too?
Yeah, I did everything except for
Okay.
master. Blake at Dynamic Sound Service mastered it.
Okay, yeah, Blake Francis Bickle.
Yep.
Man, I listened to it and I was like, you were bragging about how great it was. And I was like, well, I'm going to have to give it a whirl just so we're kind of on the same page here. And I didn't know what to expect, but man, this thing fucking steamrolled me
Yeah.
like right off rip. I mean, it just pummeled me. I was like, Jesus, this thing was rolling. But
yeah.
I could see why you like it so much.
It's
'cause it
right in my
has-
wheelhouse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it has that heaviness, but it has a lot of jamminess to
Yeah,
it too.
the
Like
prettiness.
there's some jamminess in the middle. And
Yeah.
I'm like, but it's something I could get into. I was like, I like this because their heavy riffs were heavy and pummeling, just
Yeah.
double bass. And I was like, damn, this is pretty badass.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize these guys were basically from what, like around here or something?
Valpo.
Or, oh, Northwest Indiana.
Yep.
Okay,
yeah.
yeah.
The Valpo boys.
Yeah.
So cool story. The guitar player Dave McKee, and he and I have become great friends since working together. Long time ago, he was in a band. Old Man Mason, I think they were called. They played Unruly one time, and I remember watching them play. They had some similar vibes to this, and I remember when they got done playing, I was like, I never thought I was going to experience ISIS live, but you guys brought that for me. They had that big
Right.
loud sound and this like that. And it was really cool. And so Dave remembered that and followed me on Instagram, and I think we were friends on Facebook. And I randomly got a message. Yeah, it was 4th of July, like 3 or 4 years ago. I remember that because I was half in the bag on gin and tonics. All excited.
Very specific.
Yeah. Yeah, if the sun was shining in the summer, we were having an event because like everyone was at my house and we had to do a big 4th of July party. And I was excited about it. But he reached out to me and said, hey, he's like, I follow you in Tiny Tree. He's like, my band Arsum needs to do a record. He's like, I feel like you're the guy to do it. He sent me a live video of them playing. And I listened to it. I was like, oh, fuck, I want to do this so bad. I said, yeah, green light. Let's figure it out.
Let's go, fam.
And then I was like, oh, you guys are in Indiana. I said, Paul and I are trying to get into Indiana in these areas. He's like, let's do a show.
Mm.
So then before, like, I think it was 2 weeks before they were going to come up and do the record, we did 3 shows with those guys. So I got to spend like 3 days of being on the receiving end of hearing what they sounded like live.
Yeah.
So I was able to be like, okay, this is how I felt. And then their first record you can really hear like me translating my experience of like what it's like to be on the receiving end of these guys. And what was cool is after seeing them live, doing the record, and then continuing to play with them, I'm just like, okay, you guys can tighten up here, like giving them like tone things. I was like, if you do this to your bass, it'll be nicer. And if you do this to your guitar, it'll be nicer. And then they like took that and then they did it their way. And then I remember the next time we saw them, I was like, you guys sounded absolutely incredible. It's like, well, it's like we took what you said and then we just, tweaked it how we needed. I was like, oh, cool. And they were incredible. I was like, holy shit.
Sweet.
Like you guys sound so much bigger, but clearer and more powerful and like less muddy, but still full. And I was like, yes. And so then when they came back, they had like just everything fine tuned and, tracking was a freaking blast. And the last time I did the record, Scott, the drummer, he had to track his drums and bounce. So like this time he got to stay through the whole record because the last time he didn't experience like what was it like to do the drums and the guitar and then the bass and all that. And so it was just like all new to him and it was a lot of fun. And then Babe, the singer, he's like, I got a bunch of singing stuff that I want to do on this record. And he's like, so you just be patient with me. I got some ideas. He's like, but I want you to do what you do to your vocals on Tiny Tree. I was like, hey, cool. So the second song on that record starts out with him singing, and it was just like, I remember we were all upstairs listening. He was down in the basement. He started singing. We're all like, are you fucking kidding me? This is what he's had hiding in there? And we're like, oh my God, dude, that was so sick. He's like, that was cool? We're like, yeah. It's like, yeah. He's like, all right, cool. And he's like, you tell he was pumped too.
Yeah, that's cool.
And then I'm like, all right, okay, if you want to go full Addison, I was like, you need to do this harm and you need to double this and do that. And he's like, okay. And then he did it. And then I used my favorite crystallizer effect on the vocal. And he's like, yeah, that's good. I like that.
Nice, sweet.
So that was fun. And then like, those guys are just, it's like when you're making a record with somebody, it's, dude, you're living in the same space and like you're being fucking vulnerable. You are like exposing your creativity to everyone in that space. And it's like you build such a deep bond being creative together. And there are times where it's like, I remember doing like the first Jesse Ray record I did, I think we did 4 weekends in a row. And all of a sudden we were done. And I remembered like the following weekend came up that we weren't doing something together. I felt like someone was missing.
Yeah.
It's just like that little thing. It's like same thing like Slug Child. Like I think we had 3 weekends back to back. And it's like you just get in that routine. It's like coming over Saturday morning or Friday night and just getting into it. And then like you start learning about them. You start building relationships. And it's so cool. I love that piece so much because I'm such a people person.
Mm-hmm.
And I love being able to make people feel comfortable, so that's like you're not self-conscious about playing that guitar riff or singing or screaming because it's just like 9 times out of 10 if it's your idea, it's going to be fucking cool.
Yep.
So we got to hear it,
Yeah.
like you do it, it's like, no, that was fucking sick. Like, really? I was like, no. Come listen.
Yeah. And it's put under a microscope too, because
Yeah.
you're hearing that part soloed or
Yeah.
that part, so you're like really in tune with it, So you're really diving deep into
Yeah.
the one layer of creativity, not like
Yeah.
the whole thing. It's not just you're mixing; you're hearing that one guitar riff,
And
play
everyone
by
is, and
itself.
everyone's scrutinizing it.
Yeah,
Yep.
exactly.
Yep.
And so
you're
it's like that
Yeah.
moment right there is that moment where it's just like it's build up time,
Yep.
and because like some people get red light fever. It was kind of
Yeah,
funny. We were talking shit to Ephraim because he's a fucking monster bass player, and so we get ready to track bass, and like he flubbed the first riff like right out of the gate. He's like I just got done playing this like 4 times with
Yeah.
Dane for the scratch track. He's like, what the fuck?
It
And he's
happens to all. of
and
us,
it was just
man.
kind of funny. He's just like, why am I nervous? And then the second time through, fucking one take wonder.
Yeah.
You definitely start analyzing. I'm doing click tracks for Iron right now.
Yeah,
so
okay.
They're scratch tracks, but I still want to play them as good as I can play them.
Right,
and then
yeah.
you realize the shit that you really need to work on. Like,
Yeah.
my right hand right there sounds great live, but like when you're sitting here like really tweaking it, I need to slow the BPM down and practice that part.
Yeah.
I can get through the click track so Adam can play to it, but like when it comes time for me to go on but you'll play something and it'll just be like, man, for me it'll be like right there, then you're like, am I over analyzing it? Probably not. It's probably good for anybody else, but I'm gonna retake it again, and then you flub the first note and you're like, well, fuck, I've gotten way further than that before.
Like, you know why I'm gonna keep that first take?
Well, to me, I'm just like, I need to play it better anyway, so I'll just practice it a whole bunch, because I'm kind of practicing at the same time, But yeah, it's weird when you really start scrutinizing that, and that's what we talked about last time. Like, we talked about a lot of stuff in the lab here, but then we walked outside and we had a whole nother like hour podcast out there, and then we were like getting into the juicy stuff where we're talking about those relationships. So I'm kind of glad you brought that up, because that's like so important when you're sitting in that producer chair. How have you been able to navigate that with maybe someone you don't get along with? Have you been in that position, or?
I haven't, honestly. I think there's, I think people that choose to work with me either kind of like know me and they like me as a person, or they're like, they think the work that I've done is cool. Like the band Returner, I was so flattered. They're like, the guitar player, Kevin, he's like, I listened to the Noodles record and I saw your YouTube and I was just like, I think it'd be a blast to make a record with you. And I was like, cool. That just meant a lot. I was like, holy cow. I was like, you chose me, and then we had a blast in the studio. There's times where I can tell my personality is very different than somebody else's. And then for me, it's kind of a learn how to pick my spots. Just like some people may not be into joking around the way I do.
Yeah.
So it's like if I know you like to joke around, then I will direct my jokes towards you. And then I'll see how another person is more, they prefer something just real direct and they're quiet. And then so I'll just kind of like favor that and be like, hey, this is really cool here. I'm like, you played it tighter here. And they're like, yeah, I did. It's like, let me redo that. Like, cool. So I think I kind of like, there's a little bit of learning people's personalities and how to, I learned that through the drive-thru at Starbucks, like working the morning shift, where it's just like, there's some people who, they're not dicks, they're just not awake.
Yeah.
We're giving them coffee and they don't want to hear me hopped up on an espresso cracking jokes.
Yeah.
And so it's like, I learned how to navigate people.
Right.
It's kind of the same thing.
It's a feeling.
Yeah. And then what's kind of cool is most times, like maybe the personnel is a little more quiet. The next time they come around and they're like, they kind of get a feel for me, they open up a little bit, which is kind of cool. But then like the thing that like I habitually do is, it's like I'm a pretty upbeat kind of person. So when we're in the space, I favor focusing on the good parts.
Yes.
So like, let's say there's a part where it's just like, it wasn't the best. So like, everything here was awesome. And like, especially like when we're doing vocals, like you got to get warmed up. It's like, okay, well, these last 3 songs sounds great. We need to go retrack the first one because now you're warmed up.
Yeah.
And then there's another thing too, is like, you kind of got to feel out how people like to work and what kind of feedback is going to be good for them and what kind of feedback is going to be detrimental.
Yes.
And so that's a big thing too, is like, it's kind of like real-time analysis where it's like, I'll kind of let, like, especially vocals, because vocals is the most critical instrument where everything influences humidity, water, confidence, and so letting them kind of set the tone, and then I feel them out to be like what their level expectation is for, like, okay, so they like this, they're like, oh, I did that, it's like, I love that sounds great. So I'm like, cool, that's your standard right there. So now I know I can push you up to that standard. Right. And then when you start getting there, and then maybe there's some things where I'm like, you start to see those little glimmers where it's like, oh, they got more in there. And then where you can be like, you know what, try that. And then they hit it, and then they start getting pumped up. And to me, it's like, that is really rewarding, because like when you hype people up, I love seeing people feel that sense of pride.
Yeah.
when they like come back and they listen, they're like, you haven't even mixed it yet and it sounds cool.
Yeah.
You know,
Yep.
that's always such a good feeling to where like the artist is super excited about it.
Yeah.
And for me personally, like, what a cool feeling that I get to be the one that facilitates that. You know, it's just like, you chose me. You're trusting me with your music, because that's such a critical. It's a huge responsibility.
Yeah.
And there's you know, another thing which has been like the thing that's been so great with bands is like their understanding, because I'm not the quickest turnaround mix time guy, because it's like day job and kids, you
Yeah,
know. But on top of that, there is with every record that I mix, there's a point to where I'll go through and do the foundational stuff of like cleaning stuff up, but then I have to have an emotional connection with it for it to click. And there will be times where it's like, I remember there was this one record I could not connect with it, and I remember I messaged the guitar player and I said, I'm going to sit on this for a week, because I said I'm struggling to connect with it right now. And he's just like, I totally get it. And then there was a moment to where like something clicked, and I was like, oh, this guitar tone got me really excited. And then because there's this like everything I work on is like, I have a hard time phoning stuff in. Like I have to be in. It's a child that I'm rearing and helping to grow, you know.
Right.
And you know, sometimes it happens right away. Sometimes it takes a second for me to be like, okay, what is it about the way we track that got me so excited about this? Like, what, Addison, what were you telling me? You know, like, and because like with the tongue cutter stuff, I remember talking to Chantal, said I need another minute. It's like to emotionally connect with this, and I was going through a lot in life personally, and I told her, I said, here's the deal. I said, we set these deadlines because she needed deadlines for getting stuff over to the label for release, and leave it to me. I set the deadline, it was due Saturday evening. I started it Friday night.
Crammed it in.
You know, like in the meantime, I had done a little bit of editing here and there, but I'd like, you know, put like 15 minutes into it. Like so much so like I do the editing, I wouldn't even bill for it, because I was like, whatever. I was like, I cleaned this up. I was like, I'm not going to bill you for this. And so then I remember it was Friday night, and I was just like, you got to get to fucking work, Addison. And so I started really get digging in, and all of a sudden I was like, oh, these drums sound really cool. And then I started pulling the thread, and then before I knew it, I had the entire record mixed Friday night. And that Saturday, I came back to, I think I went to work that morning, came back that afternoon. I was like, all right, I'm going to go over everything I did and make sure that I got everything. Because the way I work is just like, I go front to back and do a pass, and I slowly go like this, and every time I do it, it's just like little automation moves. I was like, oh, I could use a little bit more of this here, and all those little itty bitty things. And so I did a pass, and I was like, realized I didn't have much. I was like, oh, did I do another pass? I was like, I'm gonna bounce this.
Yeah.
And then sometimes like I won't even bring up something that I'm on the fence about to see if the artist says anything.
Yeah.
You know, I'll be like maybe like, is this too loud or too quiet? It's like, I'm gonna let it ride, see what they say.
Yep.
And then I sent it out to her, and she's like, this is really cool. And that was the one where I'm like, this is either great or this is shit.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so and that's really exciting. And like when I was mixing Returner, I remember sometimes I'll have these walls built in my head. I was like, there's so much work to do. Because I was like, maybe there's like the guitar work was so intricate. And I remember pulling it up, and I was just starting to go through all this stuff, and all of a sudden just like a fucking balloon popped. And the next thing you know, it was like literally like 6 hours later, I looked up, I was like, holy shit. And like the record was like, and I looked down, I'm like, I just see like just a window full of automation lines of just crazy shit. Because like, you know, when you get in that creative mode and you're like, I got this here, and then you just start chasing it. But like, it's just crazy. Like it depends on project to project, because like sometimes it'll find you right away, and sometimes it'll take a moment, and all of a sudden it'll be that one thing that gets you really excited. You're like, oh man, that vocal is really cool. And then it just, everything comes together. And then at that moment, it's kind of like the music just like opens up to you. It's kind of like meeting a person for the first time. You know, it's like you get to know them a little bit, and all of a sudden they start telling you a little bit, something with a little more substance. And all of a sudden it's like, oh, there you are.
Yeah. And I like that, because that shows that you care, because a lot of people could just phone it in and say, I'll just mix it and send it to them real quick. But I think you being honest and saying, "Hey, man, give me like a week to like get in the right headspace. So let me connect with this, because if you weren't connected with it, it's easy to move faders and markers and everything and do automation and just phone it in or whatever.
Yeah.
But like if you're actually connecting with it and you need something to call you out of it, like I actually appreciate that. I'd rather have you do that than just send me whatever the fuck just because you had to get it done. Like you know, so that definitely shows that you care. But
I want somebody who cares producing, mixing, listening when they're doing their job. You know, when it comes to music, I hope anybody involved that has a hand in it cares about their part of it.
Yeah,
you know, it's got my name on it,
and that's a big piece.
When I give it back, I hope that they appreciate my time, effort, energy. You know, like I would want to know that I'm bringing my music to that person. So thank you.
That's cool.
I mean,
you know, on the flip, sometimes it's like I'll tell bands like I swung for the fences.
Nice.
And sometimes it'll be like you swung too far. I'm like, that's fine.
Yeah.
But sometimes I'll like be like really attached to something. I'm like, I was really excited about this, and then I'll tell them it's like I really went for it on this, because like that's the way I like the thing is like I've kind of like figured myself out is just like I'll go really bold, and the bands will be like, okay. I'm like, cool. I said, but we know what bold sounds like. You know, it's like you can always pull somebody back, but you can't push them forward. But it's just like it's like cool, bold's neat, but it's like just ring it. It's like, do you really need that much reverb on there?
Yeah, rein
it in
a little bit.
And so like, but then I'll be like really excited about something. I was like, I really like this. And then sometimes the band will be like, listen to it, and they'll be like, I don't know. And then all of a sudden, like 2 weeks later, like, you know what? That's actually pretty cool. And I'll be like, all right, cool. Because I'll be like, maybe like, I'll just do something. It usually has to do with the fucking drums. I always make the biggest, boldest shit on the drums.
Right.
Like I said, the return thing, I was like, we don't normally favor that much reverb on vocals. I was like, try it. Just try it. And then, 2-3 weeks go by and they're like, their mixed notes, none of the notes were reverb related.
Reverb off. Yeah.
And then I'm like, cool. Because there's this, like, it's exactly that. It's like I'll start chasing a feeling. And then like I'm mixing in cans, and so there'll be these times where it's like I'll hit spacebar and I'll close my eyes and I'll listen, and then I'll see how long I can go before something jumps out at me.
Yeah.
And then sometimes it's like, I listened to the whole record. I was like, time to bounce it.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
Well, shit, man, we've went almost 2 hours already. I know you got band practice today. Is there anything else that you want to talk to Addison about, or anything was on your?
I mean, so what's your main outlet right now for music? Are you recording is the main thing for you, or is it getting back to a stage, or just writing? Like where are you at?
Stage right now, honestly.
Okay.
That's such a good thing, because that's something I was actually like thinking about, like, because it's normally one or the other. Now I think I'm like kind of going to be favoring trying to play more,
performing out.
Yeah, it's just feeling good. It's feeling good to have a bass in my hand, because I have always loved playing bass so much.
Yeah.
And that's really exciting, and
I'm looking forward to hearing you, seeing you both. Like
it's the thing that's really exciting too is Chantel and Cam both said it's like, this feels good.
Yeah.
It's always fit. It's when you're coming in to being the new kid on the block.
Yeah, but they know you.
Yeah, but it's like it's one thing to like be a person, but then it's like, okay, now you're making noises with us to be able to like
better sound good.
Because then and it's just like I really nerded out on my bass tone, because it's which is fun. So then they're like, and like Cam's like, yeah, your bass sounds fucking huge, but I can hear it.
Yes.
So I'm like, cool.
Yeah, you nailed it then.
I'm having some fun with it too.
Oh yeah,
good.
If you guys want to talk tones, we can burn up another half hour.
Well, I do want to say this. Nick's got kind of a hard out today. He's got to get home, but so just being mindful of time here. So but yeah, man, I'm really glad that you came back on the show. I'm really glad that things are working out. I know life is taking a turn for you, but it's nice to see you. It's nice to be able to hang with you and chat. And so what's next? You got some shows with Tongue Cutter. You got the Dies single coming out.
Yep.
That you just retracked. You got
November 2nd will be my first show with Tongue Cutter at Skeletones.
Okay.
And then there's a handful more that are, I think, coming down the pipe that have been popped into the group messages about, are we free this day? Are we free this day? So I know there's some more stuff coming together. Then Tongue Cutter release. Returner, if that's out when this goes out, like that's a band. Go follow them now so you can check out their. Okay, their next
At least on Facebook, I did.
their band was great before, but these guys, so they had another guitar player in the band, and he also did singing. And these guys were like, you know how it's like if you lose a sense, the other one gets stronger. These guys going from a 4-piece to a 3-piece was just like, I listened to their previous music, excellent. This one, it's like these guys have just, it's incredible. So much talent in that group, and they're so creative. I think it's really neat. But they got strong. So yeah, so Returner. Then yeah, the new Die single. That cool song, really cool song. I remember when B-Man was telling me about it, I was like, dude, no offense, this sounds stupid. And he's just like, nah, bro, you just gotta trust me, bro. He's like, he's like, B knows best. Because
Perfect.
Because he's just pitching these ideas. Like, I don't know, this all sounds just. I was like,
on paper it's not great, bro.
I was like okay, and then like it was happening, and I remember looking at him like, all right, this is really cool.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Maybe you just didn't explain it, B-Man, good enough.
Well, yeah, bless his heart, man. But that's cool. I'm trying to think of anything else I'm working on that's coming out. Tongue Cutter, when that comes out, that's cool.
Don't really know a date on that.
I'm not sure. It's done, which is cool.
I'll get with Chantel. We've been meaning to have her back on the show for Tongue Cutter.
Yeah.
And then she was like, because she was only on really to talk about Hot Iron Your Sleeve and kind of, when she was here, and then we're like, well, talk about your band, and then she was like, well, when the demo comes out. Well, then the demo was about to come out, and then the whole label thing happened or whatever, and then now I know she's been working diligently on getting the album out.
Yep.
So hopefully we'll see her back in soon. We're going to see her soon for Heart on Your Sleeve Fest anyway, so maybe we'll just knock it all out at once, or we'll make that a completely different thing, because we'll probably do the same thing this year, too, if we can make it happen. I know we are playing there this year. Iron Sharpens Iron.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah.
Cool. I know she's doing I was really excited to see no repeat bands.
That's cool.
And
I was hoping that she would have let her own band play, though. You guys?
Yeah.
Probably just cool to...
but she really wants to stick to that. I respect that, because it's like, as an audience member, it's like, you want to see something new every year.
Yeah.
I think that's so cool. Like, so I said, who are you bringing in? She said the lineup. I was like, sweet, that's cool. I respect that. And there's so much talent around, and that there's that piece where
got a lot come through here.
Oh, dude, I know. I see all the freaking the blurbs come up on Insta. That's where I get most of the exposure is following you guys on Instagram. But then it's like, you guys get a lot of freaking bands through. And then like I'll see a clip of something you guys post, and I wander over to Spotify or Bandcamp and go check them out and be like, okay, this is fucking heavy. You guys have had some fucking riff monsters on here.
Oh, yeah, for sure, dude.
Holy shit.
Had some good send-ins. We've had some good guests doing their thing. So and there's more out there we want to hopefully get. We've talked about, like,
just imagine where you'll be a year from now.
Right.
Have you written down your goals and vocalized them? I'm a firm believer in that. Vocalize your goals.
We are getting that. We are getting there. We're just trying to get our feet in the last year. I was in that headspace too, where I was like, I'm just gonna do things as they come. I was real stressed out and burnt out at the time. I kind of let a lot of the hip hop production and recording and video making and all that go. I love metal. I wanted to do the podcast.
Yeah.
This idea came, and I was like, I was in the point where you talked about with the music, where you felt like you wanted something out of it. You needed an outcome, or you needed to be working on an outcome. You weren't doing something because it felt right, or you wanted to do it just because that's what you've always done.
Yeah.
You did it because you have to make it something happen. Yep. But now we're kind of there in the podcast where it's like we're growing. Now we have to decide, are we going to make this thing actually grow and put the time, effort, and energy and goal setting and all that, and treat it like a real business? Like, can we take it that far? Do we want to take it that far? I personally do, because I love doing it, and I would like to talk to even bigger. I want to see some of these bands that I really admire and inspire to be like on the show, whether we go to them, they come to us, whatever it may be, meet in the middle type thing. Zoom calls always work too, or whatever. But so we're getting there for sure. But I agree with you 100%. We definitely. But at the time, a year ago, it was just like, hey, let's do a little interview show, because I had a podcast I started before, like in 2020. Then COVID happened, and then. But that was like more just, it was kind of like hip hop, a little bit of everybody that I wanted to interview. But now that we actually have a niche, and fuck, this is what I know mostly about is metal and music.
Being yourself is the only way. That's one thing I tell people is like, the best way to be is be yourself, because it's just like people can sense when you're not.
Yep.
You know, like performing, you can tell if someone's phoning it in, or if that throwdown is real.
Yeah.
You know, like that energy. So it's, and I remember like having that as a restaurant. It was like the pizza place, like that was like me through and throughout. And so it's like, it was really easy for that business to feel connected to, because it's like, oh, this is me, you know. And I think that's so important, is like when you're being honest, it's just like everything just will fall into place.
Yep.
You know, and that's something I went through with like Tying Tree. It's like, maybe this wasn't the right thing to push me through, because I still have aspirations of being more active as a musician and traveling, and like me and Vin, our goal was like, I want to be able to play a 300 cap room anywhere in the country.
Yeah.
And so it's like there's that's still lingering down inside me, and part of me wants just like, maybe Tying Tree wasn't the right configuration. You know, maybe it's, you know, maybe it's Tongue Cutter. You know, maybe, you know, it's like maybe Tongue Cutter set me up for the next thing where, you know, like there was I remember a moment where it's just like, I finally realized that all the guys that I admire in bands are like in their 50s. And I'm like, oh, they're still doing it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because I remember like once like my 20s started to get behind me, I was like, I lost my window. I'm like, that's not the case.
Yeah,
No,
it's not. Everybody's got a different timeline, and you can't really ever compare your journey or your time to others, because then you're just going to be in misery all the time. But let me just say this, man. We're going to wrap this beast up, dude. Just thank you so much for coming. I'm very proud of you, bro. Like,
thanks,
I call
man.
you one of my good friends that maybe we don't always speak all the time, but we always have a great time when we talk, even, you know, just not on microphone or whatever. And it's really awesome catching up. Great to see you're doing good, and just always admired and appreciated your talent and your drive, and you inspire me as a musician and just as a person, man.
Rock
so
and roll,
good to
brother.
see, man.
Yeah.
So I appreciate you, man. Y'all keep it metal. Check out Addison Eilers. If you want to book, hit him up.
Yeah. Facebook, Instagram, Analog Time Machine.
Analog Time Machine.
Yep.
He can get you. So, much love. Keep it metal. Peace. Thank you so much for checking out the episode. Be sure to hit that like button and give us a share.
Yeah, and if you enjoyed our podcast today, please give it a rating on your streaming service to help us gain some exposure.
And if you really enjoyed the show, please give us a follow or hit that subscribe button and come hang out with us every week. And remember, keep it metal.